Is this on? Yes, we're on. Yep. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I trust your trip was safe and sound. This is our first annual event of the Armenian American Forum, and we are your hosts, Sevan and Naira at Hyeland Project. Thank you. So I met many of you earlier yesterday, and I hope whoever I don't know, will meet and have a great time. I hope the event is fruitful and you guys can, head home with great memories. And we will perhaps see you next year. And, oh yes, the sponsors. So I do want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, not the Hyeland Project.
We're doing a great job.
Yeah. But the library has graciously donated their venue to us, which has been an incredible location, incredible venue. Storica Wine was hosting our event last night, and we want to thank them, as well as Grun's Guitar, which will be our location again tomorrow morning. So thank you, everyone. And I'll hand it over to Sevan to introduce our first speaker.
Thank you. So, as Naira said, this is our first time doing it, this event, and it's the first Armenian American conference that has happened recently, at least. And this whole thing started because as the Hyeland Project, we're a new organization, and we were trying to get the word out about us, and we were instructed and advised to go to a conference, and there wasn't one. So here we are, very happy that you all made it. And what this conference is, it's better to describe what it's not. This is not a unity building exercise. This is not a place for all of us to agree or create policy. It's a place for us to explore our network and find out what's going on out there, share what we're doing, learn from each other, and build and grow. And so our first speaker, Garo Armen, who unfortunately can't be in person, but will be calling in or through Zoom, is an extraordinary individual, and he is great at collaborating and working with people who he doesn't necessarily agree with 100%. So to me, he typifies this thing that we're trying to encourage and grow, of building bridges and breaking down silos and finding the middle ground and getting things done. So with that, we will transition to Garo's presentation, and then we will have a question and answer session afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and it's a privilege of mine to be with you this morning. You know, as I reflect on the nature of this meeting, I can't help but think that every single Armenian group, practically, that I have been associated with or I have been exposed to, always thinks about unity, which is an unachievable outcome. It's an unachievable outcome because first of all, it doesn't make sense to achieve unity in the context of what we're trying to achieve here. And secondly, particularly in the context of Armenians, it's an insurmountable objective. And so if we waste a lot of time trying to achieve unity, then we would be really spinning our wheels. And so the beauty of this conference, when I first heard about the concept from Sevan, was the fact that it encourages diversity. And diversity is critically important both in biological and societal sense, because if we don't have diversity, our ability to achieve some wonderful things, and more importantly, our ability to survive, is really in jeopardy. So diversity is critically important. And I think if we embrace the concept of diversity, particularly with our younger, more mature, and older generations, I think we will have taken a major step towards doing something achieving an objective that Armenians so far have failed to achieve. So as we gather here, let's embrace the concept of diversity. Our community thrives when we accept the concept of diversity, as opposed to trying to force unity. Challenging each other is a wonderful thing, and particularly in an environment where we have change as a constant, technologies advancing at such a rapid rate that change has become a constant. So when the change is a constant, to bet on one horse would be highly risky. That's one of the reasons I think diversity as we go forward is going to be critically important, because it will allow us to adapt to different circumstances much more rapidly than we can without it. If I reflect, for example, on my journey as a founder of Agenus, which is a cancer immunology company, and then COAF, Children of Armenia Fund. And even if I embrace the concept of healthy living through Ararat Farms in Maine, in each one of these efforts, not only have I encouraged the diversity of thought and embraced it, but I've also encouraged inclusiveness. Inclusiveness in the sense that, for example, with Children of Armenia Fund, when we founded it in 2003, we wanted to make sure that instead of dictating how the communities that we serve should be behaving and achieving things, we wanted to make sure that they are included in the process. Because through that inclusion comes diversity of thought that we wouldn't be exposed to at all without it. So it's critically important that we exercise an inclusiveness concept as opposed to excluding people. And in the context of, for example, Agenus, when I founded the company in 1994, at that time, the concept of immunotherapy in the context of curing cancer was something that was not embraced. So we had to be courageous. And I say today we have achieved the success that we wanted to achieve in terms of curing some of the cancer patients that would be otherwise incurable. And we have not yet achieved the financial success, and that is a whole different subject matter. It really reflects on the nature of the society that we live in, but it's inevitable that it will come next. But with COAF, we've achieved unbelievable success by serving 150,000 people in a diverse community of well over 100 villages. And for some of you that have exposure to us, you will have seen the transformative initiatives of COAF and how the communities have really advanced in ways that it would have been really unimaginable without it. Now, with all of this, let me just take a step back and suggest a couple of basic rules of potential success. Rule number one is we need to make sure that we encourage a healthy living, a healthy lifestyle, a healthy existence. Unfortunately, particularly in so-called more advanced countries like the US and increasingly in Europe, Europe is not as bad yet, we have really prioritized exploiting corporate profits at the expense of people. And what that means is really the unhealthy living standards have been integrated in our everyday life, from basic dietary habits to stress factors that really make our lives very difficult to live. all at the expense of profitability at the end of the day. And of course, some of the changes that we're seeing right now globally are trying to address these issues, because while it seems somewhat extreme to take the initiatives that we're seeing in places like Washington, D.C., I must admit that we've gone from perhaps one extreme, which is abusing the system in every way, including our health, to perhaps another extreme that imposes some of the objectives with extreme measures. So my hope is that we will, through all of this process, come up with a solution that will be a healthier outcome for all, a healthier outcome in terms of our bodily functions, our ability to think clearly, and make sure that we set to be role models for the next generations to come. Now, with all of this, I just want to touch upon the importance of technology. Technology, as you know, is a critical part of our everyday life. And most recently, I've become addicted. And if that's the wrong word, I don't want to give you the impression for it being a negative outcome, but I've become addictive to artificial intelligence. And of course, a lot of people interpret artificial intelligence in different ways, but my interpretation of artificial intelligence is that it is a thought partner. It's a thought partner that allows us to iteratively perfect an idea, not take ownership of the idea, but help us perfect that idea in ways that would be impossible otherwise. I mean, I'll tell you, my children, when I embraced artificial intelligence a little over 2 years ago in a beta format, much more crude version of what it is today, my children, who you probably know, protested the idea because they thought about it in the context of only as a writing tool. And both of them, by the way, are writing experts, and they have graduated from good places with English and writing degrees. So they took offense to the fact that I was using an external tool for writing. And I corrected them and I said, writing is a tiny little part of artificial intelligence, tiny little part. And increasingly with the advances in this technology, it has become a discussion partner. It has become a thought partner so that we can iteratively improve our decision-making process by gathering facts. I argue with AI tools. Sometimes I fight with them, all for the purposes of making sure that with this challenging, which is the cornerstone of this conference, diversity, with the diversity and the ability to challenge, we perfect an idea in ways that would be impossible to do at the speed that AI allows us to do, with the intelligent or more intelligent, I'd say, gathering of facts. So AI is a fantastic, fantastic outcome for the society, for us to be able to improve the way we think, we gather facts, we process facts, and we come up with, at a minimum, interim decision. So I tell my colleagues that if we don't use AI properly, we will have obsoleted ourselves in the next 6 to 9 months, not in the next 5 to 10 years. So as we wrap up here, at least with my talk, a few rules of guidance. Number one, let's make sure that, as Sevan alluded to, and as the conference stands for this principle, let's make sure that we embrace diversity. Of course, it's healthy to have animated discussions. It's healthy to be open to listening to others, and process ideas and thoughts with the what if. What if they're right? What are the consequences of them being right? How do we embrace these ideas and make sure that we incorporate them into our thought process? It's more important that through diversity, we achieve a number of different potential pathways to our objectives and not close those pathways. Because through diversity, particularly in a rapidly changing environment, our chances of achieving success will be much greater than with a monolithic approach. So that's number one. Number two, let's make sure that we become the symbol of healthy living ourselves. That is for our children, our colleagues, our friends, other dear ones. Let us put our behavior where our mouth is. And let's make sure that, as difficult as it may be in this modern society, let's make sure that we adapt to healthy living standards, whether that is through nutrition, through meditation, yoga, and other techniques. I think we need to be ahead of the pack, and we have to serve as a role model. That's number two. Number three, let us make sure that we embrace an inclusive philosophy. Let's include others, particularly those that we're trying to serve, to make sure that through that inclusion, we best serve the constituencies that we are attempting to serve. It could be the diaspora community, it could be the various communities in Armenia, it could be our next generation that we're trying to empower and revive to be able to pave the path for a very productive future. And lastly, let us make sure that we incorporate technology so that we achieve things much more efficiently with a much more rigorous process than would be able to otherwise. So I encourage you all, if you aren't already, I'm sure you are, to be able to perfect the art of utilizing artificial intelligence and other technological tools to stay ahead of others. And ahead of others, not because we're trying to compete with them, but ahead of others so that we can pave the way through leadership to show the right path, the right achievable objectives for all, not just for ourselves, but for all. So I'll conclude my remarks with that, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them now or later. Sevan, I'll turn it to you.
All right.
Yes.
Hi, Garo. Can you hear me?
Hi. I can hear you perfectly fine. Yes.
Lovely.
Please.
Thank you for the presentation. Please mute. Computer. Okay. So do we have any questions for Garo? No questions. All right, Garo, thank you. It was a lovely presentation. Oh, we have one from Ayvazyan. Let's see what he has to ask.
What are we doing? Both? Oh, good. Parev Garo inch pesek. Lavis. Okay, we can't hear him, by the way.
Oh, he got muted? No, he was just talking.
Is he all right?
Can you hear me now?
Barely. We can hear him here. Anyway.
Can you hear me on the system?
Yes. Yeah, okay. Now we can.
Great.
So let's talk a bit about cancer and how you're going to save us all from the suffering of cancer.
Okay, so that's a subject that I think is quite complex, but I'll try to simplify it in a very short fashion. So I indulged in cancer or a cure for cancer in the early 90s based on a few very simple principles. You may or may not know that cancer is a very diverse disease. not because there are different types of cancers, but most importantly, every single cancer of an individual is a different disease. In other words, we say, for example, XYZ individual has lung cancer. That doesn't mean that his or her lung cancer is the same as somebody else's lung cancer. It simply means that it's a mutation of the tissue, mutation of the cell that is in the lung, not because it's the same disease from one person to the other. So with that, for many years, as you know, for the last 5 decades, presidents have promised that we're going to find a cure for cancer in the next 10 years. Unfortunately, it's never happened. I'm hoping that it will happen now with the new president, possibly, and that we will take a big step in making that come to a reality. Now, of course, when you have such a diverse disease from one person to the next, a common drug is almost impossible to be effective. So in fact, the commonly used drugs that we have out there are chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and so-called targeted therapy, because targeted therapy is really a misnomer. Because it's really not targeted. It targets certain elements of the cancer cell, but it doesn't target an individual's cancer cell in its entirety. So the only way to really overcome this challenge, the only way, is by activating the immune system so that the immune system finds its own individualized path to kill the cancer. Cancer is a tug of war between the disease, which is cancer, and the immune system. The more we can weaken the cancer, and the more we can strengthen the immune system, our chances of winning that tug of war will be enhanced. And for example, when you debulk cancer with surgery, and a person's immune system is relatively intact, that may be sufficient to be able to overcome the disease and cure the patient. But if the person's immune system is weak and you cannot weaken the cancer itself, then the chances of being able to overcome the cancer becomes a bigger challenge and only addressable by doing some dramatic improvements in activating the immune system. So that's what we do as a company, activate the immune system. And for those of you who are interested in science, I would encourage you to look at, for example, some of the recent published articles in world-renowned scientific and medical journals, like, for example, Nature Medicine, which is the top clinical journal in the world, Journal of Clinical Oncology, that's JCO, and Cancer Discovery. All 3 major journals have had articles published on our compounds in the last 6 months. And of course, we've also presented these concepts at major conferences like ASCO, ESMO, SITC, ASCO GI, ESMO GI, and so on. So the path forward is exciting. I think there'll be some turbulences in the very, very near term, next several months. But beyond that, I think the promise of cancer cures is more real today than ever before.
Lovely, thank you. And we have one more question from
Sure.
Arakelyan. Use both the mic. Yeah.
Yes. Hello, Garo. I was hoping to see you in person, but no problem. We'll visit you. The question I have is, do you have any plans to take your R&D to Armenia?
If this question came from a distance. So do we have anyone that is doing R&D in Armenia? Is that the question?
Do you have plans to do R&D?
Oh, okay. So we are already doing clinical research in Armenia, by the way, at the Yeloyan Center for Hematology and Cancer. There are a number of very brilliant scientists, clinical scientists at the Yeloyan Center. One of them is Samvel Bardakjian. So we sponsor research in his laboratory, as well as we're treating patients in the context of clinical research with our agents. Now, to give you a little anecdote that you'll get hopefully a kick out of, So many years ago, when I was working in one of our villages, namely Lernagog, I met a young lady, Manushag Avagyan. And Manushag at that time was 13 years old. And I introduced the concept, in very basic terms, to 13-year-olds, the concept of immunology and immunology of cancer. And many years later, I see Manushag at the medical school, and she comes and introduces herself to me, and says, "Do you remember me?" Of course, I did not. And so she explained. And this lady graduated from the medical school, interned at the Yeloyan Center, and now she works for Agenus in cancer research, cancer clinical research. And she's back to Armenia to do her work at the Yeloyan Center. But these connectivities are either God's will or some other superior creature. But all of these things do matter because there are, as my grandmother would say, there are reasons for things to happen in the way they happen. And this is one of those miracles.
Beautiful. Thank you, Garo. We have one more question.
Please.
My name is Seda Papoyan. I put efforts to push more and more girls and women into technology. Thank you for the rules you mentioned. I'm gonna reflect on my experience later on, but would like to source some thoughts from people like you with your experience. The way you described our future to be inclusive, diverse, and technology-oriented, how do you see the role of women and girls shaping that future?
So, Sevan, if you can briefly recap that question, that'd be great.
Sure. She asked, how do you envision women playing a role in this technologically inclusive and diverse future?
Okay, so I encourage you to not think about women or men in the context of what we're trying to do here. I think we need to think about competent people. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. When Children of Armenia Fund started working in the villages of Armenia, we didn't segregate between women and men. We just wanted competent people to participate locally in our work. And to my delight, and to perhaps your delight, women constituted the majority of the people that participated, majority of them. Okay. And if you look at, for example, clinical research at Agenus, we have a combination of both men and women, and we don't segregate them. We say, let the competent person qualify. And to our delight, there are a substantial number of women, females, that qualify. So I think we need to look at things on the basis of meritocracy and not sex. And if we do, in other words, if we do not exclude women because they're women or females, then you will see a fantastic outcome because so many females are highly qualified for the job, highly qualified, as opposed to breaking them into categories of men and women and trying to make sure that we have an equal distribution. So if we don't go that pathway of equal distribution, I can assure you that women will be much more qualified, I hate to say it, than in many instances men are.
Thank you, Garo. We have one last question.
This one should be quick. Garo, thank you for your time. This is Stephen Heroyan asking. You mentioned that you're using AI as your thought partner. What AIs are you using on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, so it has evolved over time, and the most versatile AI is ChatGPT. Now, of course, ChatGPT has a number of different versions. Up until several months ago, I was using 4.0. Now I use 4.5, and I also use Pro 1. But I must tell you that I have more fights with Pro One because it hasn't yet incorporated the most current information. So yesterday, as recently as last night, I made a number of inquiries to Pro One, and each time I know for a fact it gave me the wrong answer. So finally I said, if you keep on giving me the wrong answer, I'm going to cancel my subscription, which is a fair amount of money. It's $200 a month for the pro version. And then it came back to me and apologized. So yes. Now, in addition to that, I also use, depending on the application, Anthropic. And our scientists use very specialized versions of AI that are specifically designed for their scientific areas of interest.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Garo. We're going to wrap up your talk. Any last words to the audience?
Well, I'm delighted that we have an attentive audience. When I had no questions in the beginning, I was going to say I must have been so clear that no questions needed to be prompted, but I'm delighted that we had some questions, and I look forward to interacting with you in the future.
Lovely. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause for Garo. Thank you, Garo.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we'll start our first official networking session, so feel free to get coffee and meet some new faces and have a nice time. All right, folks, this is our first intro speech session. So the way this is going to work is for this event to not be total chaos, we're all going to have to be very diligent about timing. So we're going to have lots of networking sessions. Pick up your conversation where you left them off. And also for our speakers, you're going to have 8 minutes. AV guys, can you put on the prompts? It's the first slide. So the way this is going to work is every intro speaker is going to have the same 3 prompts. Share, raise awareness of your organization or a program in your organization. Share best practices to emulate or worst practices to avoid from experience. And thirdly, identify capability gaps in the Armenian American community. So 8 minutes is not enough time to discuss any one of those things, but it will prompt us to have interesting conversations during networking. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Gev, and he will introduce himself and hit these 3 prompts, and if he goes over 8 minutes, we will kick him off the stage.
Gladly. Thank you. Thank you, Sevan, and all the organizers for this incredible event. I think there's one thing in this room that connects everybody, and contrary to popular belief, I don't think it's the fact that we're Armenian. I think that everybody in this room knows that being Armenian, whether it is the maintenance of our culture, our political advocacy, our identity, everything that it entails, requires work. And every single one of you understands that. That for the Armenian nation to survive, it can't be a passive process. It needs to be an active process. And at our core, that's what our organization believes in. My name is Gev Iskajyan. I represent the ANCA, the Armenian National Committee of America. We are one of the strongest ethnic lobbies in the United States. We have chapters across 36 states. We have over 50 chapters from California all the way to Washington, D.C. and beyond. Our primary focus is obviously political advocacy. We work on a litany of issues, whether it is standing for the rights and representation of the Armenian American community in the United States, whether it is advocating for better relations in terms of the United States and our homeland, Armenia. And lastly, we believe in elevating the next generation of Armenian Americans. Over the last 2 to 3 years, I had the privilege of working in Artsakh. I served as the executive director of the ANCA Artsakh in Stepanakert. We were there during the blockade, the war, and it was very important for us to have our team, our members there with the people, because we advocate for Artsakh's right to exist. We advocate for the Armenian people's rightful place on the nation of tables, but it's also important for us that the Artsakhtsis, that the people of Armenia, the people of our homeland, know that this isn't a struggle that we carry on in terms of words. It's exemplified through action. So living with them, documenting the blockade, sharing that news with the rest of the world, seeing the horrific atrocities committed against our people, but also trying to amplify that noise on the world stage is incredibly important for us. And that is a big chunk of what our organization does. Lastly, we believe strongly that we have our own political principles, we have a certain way of action, and many people can agree with it, can disagree with it, but one thing that I think we have mass appeal towards is the fact that Armenians need to be represented more and everywhere. And currently, a big portion of our efforts goes to that, the elevation of the next generation of Armenian Americans. So our office is based in Washington, D.C. We've got an incredible team that works across the country. We have regional offices in New Jersey, in Los Angeles. But we do our best to gather youth, the best and brightest of the Armenian American nation and community, to Washington, D.C., to give them opportunities they might not have anywhere else. Some of you may have done those programs, some of your kids may have done those programs, but it really is the soul of our core mission. Recently, we purchased a property in the heart of Washington, D.C. that houses anywhere from 15 to 20 youth. And in the course of the last 10 years, we've seen hundreds of people come through those programs. And what we say is that if you're a young Armenian American and you want to work in politics, in policy, in legislation, where we're heavily underrepresented, we know that there are a lot of barriers to entry. If you're a young college student, it's very tough if you're from LA or from the East Coast to leave everything behind and come to Washington, D.C. And work there and look for a job. There's financial hurdles, there are community hurdles. You need to go somewhere where you know people, where you're welcome. And we try to break as many of those barriers as possible. So one of our main programs, our Capital Gateway programs, brings in 20 Armenian youth every year to Washington, D.C. And we tell them that we are going to house them free of charge in the capital for over 4 months. We connect them with people in various industries. So if you want to work in the State Department, somewhere that, again, we're heavily underrepresented, we will get you an Armenian mentor that has gone through those steps, that currently works there, to help navigate you through that process. If you want to work in Congress, we will match you with a mentor. We will provide you interview training. We will provide you resume building. And for those 4 months, the only thing you have to focus on is getting a job there in the capital. Yes, 2 minutes, thank you. More than 10 years ago, I would say I could count the number of staffers that we had on the Hill in DC that were of Armenian American descent. Today we have over 40 of them. And to us, that is a testament to the work that we do. So when I want to go meet with a congressman from Wyoming, of which there are 2 Armenians we've been able to identify in the entire state, it becomes tough for you to get your message across, because they're like, what community do you represent? You say the Armenians, who are they? Point it out on a map. Now, we walk into congressman's office from Wyoming, and there's an Armenian staffer there. And that point of representation is powerful. Instead of having tens of thousands of people that would equate to the same volume and that would have the same impact. We have people working in those offices across the country, and that's what helps elevate what we do. Thank you. So when it comes to best practices, things to avoid, every organization in here is unique and special, and you do something that is incredibly valuable to the Armenian nation. And I wouldn't even dare tell you how to run your organization. The only thing that I would say is that representation matters. The only thing that I would say is that everything that we do means nothing if the next generation cannot inherit it. So the focus on our youth, the focus on building Armenian representation across the states, and building essentially, in effect, our power in this country is vital to anything that we want to do. And every single one of you focuses on that in one way or another. So I'm going to cut my time off and thank you all for being here. I can't wait to discuss this with you.
Well done, Gev. Well done. Thank you. All right. So definitely follow up with him if anything he said sparked your interest. Our next speaker is the president of the Armenian International Women's Association, an organization dedicated to empowering Armenian women through education, advocacy, and leadership initiatives. Let's welcome Silva Katchiguian to the stage.
Thank you very much. Let's see if this is on. Yes, very good. And I too will be trying to follow notes so I can stay on schedule. Thanks again to the organizers of the Hyeland Project, the Tennessee Hyeland Project, for creating this opportunity for open dialogue. But the first thing I'd like to say is, please join me in congratulating all the women in the audience and the women in your lives on International Women's Day. Today and every day, we celebrate the achievements of women, and at the same time, today serves to highlight the ongoing struggles of issues that affect women and girls, from educational disparities to violence to discrimination across the globe. Now, one cornerstone of this struggle is the role of organizations such as the Armenian International Women's Association, AIWA. Founded in 1991, it serves as a beacon of hope, connection, and advocacy for women of Armenian descent worldwide. Our mission is to promote cultural, educational, economic, social advancements for women. We create a platform where their voices can be heard and their contributions recognized. Education is the heart of our mission. This includes scholarships for higher education, mentorship programs, skills development, and workshops that equip women and girls with essential skills to thrive in today's world. We tailor our programs, and that would probably be one of the better practices of the organization, where we work with local partners to meet the specific needs of different segments within our communities. For example, we partnered with Hub Artsakh in Armenia and the Genesian Memorial Foundation, or Association actually, in Lebanon, to help create programs actually for women who were forced to rebuild their lives due to conflict, displacement, and/or destruction. And they are now being taught new skills, and we're happy to report that they are also finding employment to sustain their families. In addition to education, AIWA, as Sevan read, actively advocates for the rights of women at local, national, and international levels. We maintain membership at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, and we work tirelessly to raise awareness about gender equality, domestic violence, and economic disparity. And this year we will be at the Commission of the Status of Women in New York on March 21, amplifying the voices of Armenian women. We also work with the Women's Support Center in Armenia to provide shelter, and we strive also to change myths and taboos related to domestic violence. We work to change legislation to recognize domestic violence as a crime, and we also raise awareness about positive values and healthy families. Well, why is this essential? Well, we all know that when women are empowered to make their own choices, to be educated, to be free from violence, to be employed by merit with equal economic opportunities in all spheres of life, to participate fully in negotiations and decision-making processes with a seat at the table. And somebody also said, and how about they make the table and then find the seat? And I said, that works too if you can make the table, sure. Well, the research indicates that if we do all that, peace is 35% more likely to last 15+ years. And who doesn't want more peace to last longer? Especially us Armenians who've lived in countries where peace does not last too long. So we have thriving families. When you have peace, you have flourishing, diversified economies, and just and equitable communities with resilient, strong nations. But why AIWA? Why an organization like AIWA? Well, because in the diaspora, AIWA is the only Armenian women-founded, women-governed, non-profit, non-political, non-religious, totally inclusive organization that can focus on issues that disproportionately affect women, ensuring that our work transcends traditional power structures and promotes equality for individuals, regardless of their background or affiliation. Now, with respect to the time that has been allotted, I am going to just jump straight to the 3 gaps that I see in the American Armenian communities. Number 1 is we have to prioritize mental health resources. We must move past that public stigma that says that it is a shame to seek help for mental illness. It is crucial to create accessible structural support networks. Creating awareness and seeking help is not a weakness. It should be considered a strength. So number 1, let's prioritize mental health resources. Number 2 is digital literacy for the elder population. And when I say elder population, the census considers 65 and above as elder population. It's not me who's setting that. I wish it weren't 65 and above and older, but 65 and above, and many are reaching that demographic. The fast-moving world of technology and artificial intelligence, we are rich in talents and skills and resources of youth, but we cannot overlook that there is a growing older population due to rising life expectancy. And just basic skills that they need, basic skills like email, online banking, navigating through common websites, telehealth services, for goodness sake, remote consultation, it's all digital. So we need to close that digital divide. And one other thing, my 3rd point, which was mentioned by Sevan, which was also mentioned by Garo Armen, breaking down the silos. We all have unique goals and responsibilities in our professions and organizations, and we serve different spheres of our communities. That diversity is strength. But if we become insular, focusing solely on our individual projects without seeking to collaborate with other organizations or businesses that provide overlapping services to similar demographics, and trust me, there are many who are doing the same work, it will lead to unnecessary redundancy and, truthfully, inefficient use and waste of the resources. don't push back. Don't be resistant when people ask for partnerships. And just break down those silos. 3. One thing. So as we dive into the networking later on, please think about those gaps. What initiatives can we launch? What sort of partnerships can we forge? And my last note, please don't forget International Women's Day. I ask each of you, kind gentlemen, and the Wonder Women here to engage with AIWA. Support AIWA, support the supporters. We can amplify our voices and raise the level of Armenian women and elevate them to the positions where they merit. This is really one of the more important, I believe, organizations. You must support AIWA for our mothers, for our sisters, for our daughters, and for your colleagues as well. So just support the supporters, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Very good. Thank you, Silva.
How far beyond did I go in my watch?
Not so, you did good, you did good. Thank you. Our next speaker is an associate attorney at Stubbs, Alderton, and Mikhael, specializing in M&A, venture capital, and startups. She is also the co-president of the Armenian Professional Society. I welcome to the stage Ani Petrosyan.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Sevon, and thank you for putting on the event with your team. It's no easy feat to put on events, as we all know, especially for Armenians and Armenian time. So I'm, like Sevon mentioned, an attorney by day, but co-president what feels like 24/7 sometimes. And we can talk about the title, co-presidency, later on in our networking. But I'm here to represent APS, Armenian Professional Society. We were formed in 1958, so we're not a fledgling organization. It's been around for a very long time and was started in the Los Angeles community to promote community, education, and fellowship for Armenians. Now, we do that in a number of ways today, especially through events. So we are one of the foremost leaders, I would say, in hosting events for the Armenian community, and not just Armenians, but others as well. We are very consistent in that, in hosting events at least once a month, and they range from social to professional. And as an example, we will be having a professional panel this March 20th, I believe, where we've invited Gev Iskajyan, a film producer and director, screenwriter, a folk singer from the Element Band, Sose, a journalist, and I'm now blanking on the fourth person, but yes. So, and topic being, you know, Armenians in arts, media, and entertainment. So we try to do diverse topics. But all that to say, we have these events, we host Armenians from across the community and across the nation all year long to fundraise for the purpose of granting scholarships to deserving Armenian graduate students. So at the end of the year, we host a fantastic gala to honor and award and recognize the incredible students, incredible scholars in the Armenian community who are on to do amazing things, one of whom is in the room today with us, and I just learned is even more amazing than we thought back in December. So if you don't know Alena, you'll soon find out more from her. We have awarded over 300 students with these scholarships, and my mission as co-president this year is to increase from what we were able to do last year for this year. And we all know graduate studies are not cheap, especially in the United States. So we went from $2,500 per student my first year on the board to $5,000 per student last year, and who knows what we'll be able to do this year, but we'll talk about that in just a second. And really, our aim is, as mentioned, education, community building, and fellowship. So one of the most important pieces of my job, I think, is to offer value at these events and generally in our organization. So we do have a mentorship program as well. We have the scholarships, and then we have these events. But I think this year, value is my key word that I'm trying to live by. What value am I offering to my attendees, to the community, and to the members? So we do have a membership base as well. Now, the way we're doing that, I think, is good in that a lot of the organizations that exist in Los Angeles particularly are inconsistent in their programming. So they'll have maybe 1 or 2 large events throughout the year, and then they're just sending you the newsletter or the requests for donations or just basic information. But we make it a point every month to have something that brings in 100+ Armenians to a given venue so that they can meet diverse-minded individuals, that they can network and find their potential next career opportunity. And then also just to make friends, because in this post-COVID world, we're finding it's very difficult post-Zoom to hold a conversation like a normal person pre-COVID. You know, eye contact is a big thing for us, shaking hands, small talk. And so we try to, as you know, going back to my word of value, making it easier for these individuals who attend by giving them prompts or games to play, icebreakers. So that's one of our best practices. As a Fresnoci, if anyone knows that term, it was very difficult, I would say, to make connections once I moved to Los Angeles. So what I'm seeing is many of our individuals and attendees and guests who are brand new to Los Angeles happen to find out about us through Instagram or LinkedIn and then attend one of our events, and the next time you see them, they've already made 1 or 2 connections and friends, and they keep coming. So that's been a great practice for us. The other thing is we have a dedicated team. So our board consists of 13 members and individuals, which I recognize to some may seem like a large number, but we are all volunteers. So to make this organization run and to make the events happen on a monthly basis, to make that mentorship program work and the scholarship grants to come in, we do recognize that our board is, it's a great team and very dedicated. Where we have gaps, and I think the prompt was broader, Armenian community, but where I think I've phrased that in my mind, the gaps in my APS organization are that as volunteers and as, you know, as volunteers, it's been difficult to build these relationships and connections to community leaders and to community businesses so that we can have a recurring, consistent donor base or sponsorship base. So a lot of the organizations I think in the room have those consistent donors, and we, as despite being, you know, 60-plus-year-old organization, we've gone through revivals, we've gone through revamps, and so we've lost some of that. And I think we are trying to get back into that mindset of we are a nonprofit, we should be able to have consistent donors and sponsors of these events, especially given the impact we're having on the community, Los Angeles and across. The other thing is, given the revamps and the revival that APS has undergone in the past couple of years, we have noticed that our attendance base has changed, and it will change depending on the context of the event or whatever programming we're doing. So it's very difficult to cater to one audience and end up excluding the other audience inadvertently. So again, my goal is to offer value to these attendees, and it's very difficult at like a more social event when it's a younger base, 25 to 35, where they're, you know, looking to network with professionals to get their next job opportunity, but there isn't a more established person in the room to help with that. that being said, I'm hoping to learn from all of you and your organization's practices, and so I welcome, please give me that honest feedback. I'd really appreciate it to make this organization last another 60 plus years, because it's been a great experience so far for me to be on the board and at these events. So thank you so much, and looking forward to connecting.
Excellent. Thank you, Ani. Thank you to all our great speakers so far. We have another networking session. It'll be 15 minutes in length, and then come back here and we'll do our next intro sessions. All right, gang. Our next speaker is the executive director of the Armenia Tree Project. Since 2015, she's led its growth from 200,000 to 1 million trees planted annually. Please welcome Jeanmarie Papelian to the stage.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jeanmarie. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Sevan. Thank you, the Hyeland Project. I am here today with my colleague, Nanor Shirikjian, who is our development director. And before I forget, Nanor and I have brought some of our recent annual reports. If anybody wants to learn more about Armenia Tree Project, ask one of us for one of those. Okay, so Armenia Tree Project, I know a lot of you have heard of Armenia Tree Project. For those who haven't, I'll give you an overview. And actually, for those who have heard of Armenia Tree Project, maybe you don't know some of the details of what we do. Armenia Tree Project just celebrated its 30th anniversary. We were established in 1994 by Carolyn Mugar. She's an activist from the Boston area. And during those dark days of the early 1990s, Carolyn was in Armenia, and she saw that people were cutting down trees, even in the city parks, to burn them to heat their homes. And so she saw the need for the tree project. And we started small in the first year, planting 45,000 trees. Now, this year, we're gonna plant 1 million trees, so we've done pretty well. Throughout our history of the past 30 years, people have said to us, how can you be doing something like planting trees at a time like this when Armenia is suffering all these other crises? And our answer is that it's exactly a time when Armenia is suffering crises that we need to be planting trees, because planting a tree is ultimately an act of hope for the future. And during dark times, hope is in short supply. Now, of course, that's leaving aside all the other benefits that trees provide. They clean the air, they clean the water through their root systems, they reduce erosion and dust and help prevent landslides, and they create habitats for animals, and they provide fruit and nuts to people in rural villages, all those things. Armenia Tree Project is a big operation these days. We have 80 year-round employees in Armenia who operate our 4 nurseries, take care of the trees, plant the trees, so on and so forth. And during the spring and fall planting seasons, we hire another 500 to 600 rural villagers annually. So we're a big employer. Our mission has always been to use trees to improve the standard of living of people in Armenia. And we focus on those with the fewest resources first. We take that mission very seriously, and we are, by planting trees, creating economic opportunities for people who are poor. I want to give you a quick overview of our programs. The most visible program, the one that we started with in 1994, is what we call community tree planting. That's our urban forestry program. That's the program in which we will green a schoolyard or a park or a churchyard. Some of the tourist sites that you might visit have our trees there. If you've gone to the Horvirat Monastery, you see our trees there. For example, Echmiadzin has lots of our trees there, places like that. We'll plant, like I said, a schoolyard, and then we'll also go in and provide environmental education to the children in that school, because it's very important that the next generation of Armenians be better caretakers of the environment than their parents and grandparents were. And actually, that's not true just for Armenians, that's true for everybody. We all need to have the next generation be better caretakers of the environment, of course. So community tree planting is one of our programs, the first one that we started. Over the years, we have greened almost 1,800 sites all over Armenia, and when Artsakh was still with us, in Artsakh as well. Forestry is now our biggest program, and over the years we have planted 1,500 hectares of new forests in Armenia. Forests are important. There's a variety of reasons why Armenia lacked forests, but it's about 10 to 11% forest cover in Armenia right now, and the experts say that the ideal forest cover would be 20%. In order to reach the 20%, Armenia would have to plant about another 800 million trees. So my million a year doesn't look that impressive in light of that, but we're doing the best we can in trying to lead by example in planting healthy trees and establishing new forests. I mentioned our environmental education program. We have 2 environmental education centers in Armenia that host about 10,000 student visitors every year. We also go to schools all over the country and provide environmental education and hands-on activity to kids. We've created eco clubs in schools around the country as well. And we have a program in the United States called Building Bridges, where we go into Armenian schools in this country and we do environmental education with them. I don't know if any of you have or had a relative who visited Armenia with their school and spent a day with us and planted trees with us. Nobody? Aram did, his kids did. St. Stephen's in Watertown has a 5th grade trip to Armenia every year. The kids spend a day with us. They visit our nursery, they get a hands-on activity at the educational center, and then we pair them with children, local children, their own age, that we've been working with, and they all plant trees together. We call that Building Bridges. It's a really great exposure for the kids, and also for kids who are on school trips to Armenia. The trips consist of a lot of museums and monasteries, and it's nice to have a break and get outside and get your hands dirty, things like that. A couple other programs that I want to tell you about in my limited time are our Backyard Nursery program, which is a micro-enterprise program that we've had for more than 20 years. In this program, we give rural villagers seeds, tools, and instruction, and they grow seedlings in their own backyards. When those seedlings are ready to be planted at one of our sites, we buy them from them. We have 113 families in this program right now, and this is a program which enables rural villagers to stay in their villages, even though there aren't many jobs to be had in those places. It's a really great program. And finally, I want to talk to you about the program we developed a few years ago to help the people of Artsakh. After the war in 2020, we heard that the terms of the ceasefire resulted in a loss of agricultural land. And we went into Artsakh and we built 51 greenhouses, 49 of which were in the backyards of villagers in Martuni and Askaran. We gave them seeds and hand tools and taught them how to grow vegetables more intensively. We didn't know the blockade was coming, but it turned out that those greenhouses were a lifeline for those people during the blockade. We were able to get some seeds in during the blockade. It was complicated, but you can fit a lot of seeds in a very small package, and so we were able to do that. And when Artsakh fell and everybody came to Armenia, we found those 49 families and we asked them what they needed. And we spent the last year doing a lot of things like winter clothes and school supplies, but now we're starting to build them new greenhouses in their backyards as they settle in places in Armenia and they can, again, grow food to support their families. A couple of things I want to talk about. We've heard about siloing in the Armenian community. Armenia Tree Projects, we operate in a unique space, right? There isn't any other environmental organization in the Armenian diaspora or in Armenia that's doing what we do. And we are careful to remember what our limitations are and our skill sets. I think Silva mentioned this, I see a lot of overlap between other Armenian organizations that everybody tries to do everything. We know we can't do everything. We had a recent experience in a village where we had planted a small community forest, and the sponsors of that forest visited the village and they wanted to contribute to renovating the school. Well, we don't do construction projects. We happily introduced them to our friends at the Paros Foundation, and the Paros Foundation renovated the school, and we worked collaboratively together. And I think sometimes Armenian organizations are reluctant to do that, but we are careful to stay in our lane. We're the environmental organization, that's what we do. The final point I want to make is about the women, and it's International Women's Day. Armenia Tree Project was founded by a woman, is run by a woman. Our director of operations in Armenia is a woman. The entire US staff are women. And in Armenia, about 50% of our employees are women. Most of the backyard nurseries are run by women because, as many of you know, in the villages, the men are often gone. They go to other places to seek seasonal work, and the women are running the show. So we're very proud on this International Women's Day to be a supporter of women in Armenia. Thank you very much. This has been great. It's a great opportunity for me. Oh, there was one more thing, and Naira is going to kill me. We're celebrating our 30th anniversary in Yerevan this spring. If any of you are going to be there, we're celebrating between May 12th and May 14th and 20th, sorry. May 14th and 20th, there's gonna be some parties. You can come and plant a tree with us. You can visit some of our sites and see them. So I think if you're gonna be in Armenia, you should connect to us, and we would love to show off our work to you. You'll have a great time.
Very nice.
I'm over my time, thank you very much.
All right, round of applause. Thank you, Jeanmarie. Lovely. All right, next we have the CEO and partner of Covenant Venture Capital and a founding partner of BAJ Accelerator. Welcome to the stage, Armen Kherlopian.
All right, sound check. We're going to keep this active and moving. Sevan, thank you very much for the introduction and a warm and fantastic Women's Day. Absolute tremendous to be here all together on this very precious day. There is a question I'll have for you during our time right now is, could you be an angel? Angel investors engage with supporting startups, and as we see right now in America and as well as in Armenia and in many facets around the world, startups can change the destiny of a country. If we consider as a benchmark all of the gold that has been mined in the last 4,000 years, that equates approximately to $20 trillion. In the last 40 years, there's been a set of startups that many of us recall their birth by the names of Google and Airbnb and NVIDIA that have grown and grown rapidly, that in aggregate are worth more than $20 trillion. Now, this dynamic is highly strategic for a country such as Armenia and our global nation, because the combination of capital, technology, as well as influence in terms of content can have outsized impact. And as per the structure of our conference today, we have a set of gaps in the capital stack that I will highlight. But first, a few points in terms of orders of magnitude. My own career has had 3 chapters, from scientist to executive and now investor. And I always find fascinating thinking of different orders of magnitude. For example, as a biophysicist, did work at the Lawrence Berkeley supercomputer. And I would have colleagues, both physically and virtually, on the supercomputer, using the machine to do mathematics at different speeds and scales. My astrophysics colleague would say, Armen, we have done the fastest simulation we have ever done in our field, modeling the structure of the universe. I said, fantastic, how fast? He says, every step in time, every data point represents 1 million years. That speed had never been achieved before. And that speed and that scale makes sense for the problem that group of individuals is looking to solve. In contrast, a biophysicist colleague similarly is working on a different problem in terms of how medicine binds to proteins in the cell. Fastest simulation of the day, how fast? 1 nanosecond. Again, it makes sense in terms of what we are working on. Now, I highlight these points of scale because as Armenians, we operate in a very fragile and high potential regime. Armenia's economy is only 25 billion. The eastern neighbor of Armenia is 3 times that. However, a startup unicorn is a company valued at 1 billion and can be built with only 50 people. So as a strategy, capitalizing, finding customers for such companies can lead to increased security, job opportunity, as well as prosperity. If we compare this with different strategies, whether trade or different aspects of diplomacy, here we have something that is meaningful in terms of speed and scale. And so let's go through a few specific examples. You may have heard Service Titan went public on the NASDAQ just a few weeks ago. When that company went public, doing software for the trades, $40 million immediately made to Armenian workers. However, no Armenian institution, Armenian American or otherwise, had meaningful exposure, nominal exposure at best. So the question is whether it's an individual angel, whether it's a syndicate like ANCA, whether it is crowdfunding like Equify, whether it's an accelerator like BAJ, or venture capital with which we're engaged highly with our team, the question is, what's next? Where is the sovereign fund, and specifically, where are our nonprofit endowments participating? So with that, I'll leave you with this call to action. Could you be an angel as an individual, and the organizations you engage with, we invite you to join in with this strategy. And I do see among us actually a set of angels. I myself am a scientist angel. We have here in the front row a lawyer angel, consulting partner angel, analyst angel, but we are few. I estimate that on the planet right now, there is not more than 100 Armenian individuals joining in with this strategy, and we need at least 300. So it is my request and wish that you learn, you find the angels among us, and you engage. And to bring this to bear, why this is so different than gold. So as Stepan showed us as a salesperson angel as well, for such a device, you need the work of different startups. So for example, a camera module, you'll have work for a company such as Skyla that does computer vision for physical security. And it's based on very foundational principles in terms of how we take the world for granted. And for example, that camera, as we know, is often thought of something as passive. But what if there's an action on the border? What if even in this auditorium, someone slips and falls and there's no one to provide aid? Armenian-American startup builds a solution on this trend to make a valuable company that creates wealth for endowments and strengthens the nation. Computer vision is an example within AI. In the foundational area, we have recently done a position in a company called Super Annotate for data quality. There's others, Cognaze in financial data, CRISP, there is Pixart. And I'm highlighting these names because as we are here with a purpose in terms of strengthening community and nation, these are the future champions of the Armenian nation's economic base. And with that, I invite you to learn more and join in. Thank you.
Well done, Armen. Thank you. Can you put it in the holder? All right, fantastic. All right, our next speaker is far too humble, but she absolutely belongs on the stage. She's the former national chairwoman of the Daughters of Vartan and a retired project manager at AGBU, AT&T, and Hughes Network Systems. Welcome to the stage, Gloria Korkoian.
Thank you, Sevan, and thank you, all the organizers. I am a daughter of Vartan. I'm also the daughter of Edward and Frances Korkoian of Dearborn, Michigan. I was raised in an Armenian household by parents who, well, my father was born in East St. Louis, Illinois, and we called him a redneck, which he wasn't. My mother was born in Istanbul, Turkey, but came when she was 18 months old. So she was an American. We were raised as American Armenians who loved the Armenian heritage. We did not speak Armenian in our household, but we went to church. We belonged to the AIWA juniors and seniors. And when I was older, I belonged to the Armenian General Benevolent Union, what you would call today the young professionals. So Armenia, heritage, and culture is in my blood. I'm going to talk about the Knights and Daughters of Vartan. In 1933, the Knights of Vartan organized in Philadelphia. It was founded by 12 men. Bishop Popkin Gulasarian, a bishop of the Armenian Apostolic Church, who later became the Catholicos of the Holy See of Cilicia in 1931. 5 ministers of the Armenian Protestant Church, 3 professors, and 3 lay leaders of the Armenian community in America. 1916. 1 year after the beginning of the genocide. They met in secret, and that's why people think that the Knights of Vartan is a secret organization. At the time, they had to be secret, because what they were doing was collecting funds and reaching out and helping the survivors, bringing them to the United States, and helping them to develop leadership skills. In 1933, the Knights reached out and said, we need women in the organization, and they formed the Daughters of Vartan. The Daughters of Vartan accomplish its mission by local chapter events, national and international service projects, scholarships, publications, and a national convention. In all of its activities, the Daughters of Vartan is dedicated to celebrating our identity and building meaningful relationships. An example is my chapter, Detroit, Michigan, Library Project and Poster Project, which Charlene Petrosyan, who will be a speaker later on, we put out our project on 2 tables, but normally it's in a library. We go to local libraries in the Detroit area, and so far we've been to 8, and we've also been at the University of Michigan Dearborn campus library. We put on displays in locked showcases, so people walking by will know who an Armenian is, what an Armenian is, and what we are proud of, our heritage and our culture. It's for the non-Armenians, and from that, we developed a poster project. Charlene would come up with an idea of a remarkable Armenian, and I would do research and find photographs, and we put together a little biography, and we'd make posters. And these were for the 4 Armenian churches that we have. And we would started at St. Sarkis Armenian Church, and the next day the poster would go, next month it would go to the Armenian Congregational Church, and then it would go to St. John's Armenian Church. In the meantime, a second poster was on rotation. And this is our way of reaching out to Sunday school children who look at these posters and say, I didn't know an Armenian invented the styrofoam cup. I didn't know an Armenian invented the MRI. I didn't know that an Armenian won an Academy Award and a Pulitzer Prize, and that would be William Saroyan. So that's what the Daughters of Vartan try to do. We try to reach out to the community and perpetuate our history. As I'll tell you a little bit about the Knights. The Daughters have been in existence for 92 years, and the Knights for 109 years. And in 1942, the Mamegonian Lodge in Brooklyn, New York, conceived the idea of an Armenian cathedral and cultural center. They contributed to the initial leadership for the campaign for funds and continued to work tirelessly until that cathedral was named St. Vartan Armenian Cathedral in New York City. In 1971, a carved bas-relief designed by Bogdan Grom was completed on the south wall over the main entrance of St. Vartan's Cathedral. It depicts St. Vartan and Catholicos Josep in 451 AD, the year of the Battle of Avarar, and it was commissioned by the Daughters of Vartan. In 1985, Times Square commemoration for the Armenian genocide was established by the 5 Mid-Atlantic Knights of Vartan lodges. In 1995, the Knights started the Adopt a School project and called the Knights and Daughters of Vartan Armenian School Project. The Knights and Daughters have supported 252 schools and with the World Bank. Our $2,700,000 in support of these projects was leveraged to $33,422 million for the construction performed. The total number of school projects, either renovation or new, is 226, and today over 100,000 children are enrolled in those schools. In 2007, the Knights of Vartan in Detroit adopted the project Facing History and Ourselves, whose mission is to link history with moral choices through education. They worked tirelessly, and on June 13, 2006, the Michigan State House Bill 4493 was signed into law, mandating the teaching of genocide in social study curriculums, including the Holocaust and Armenian genocide for grades 8 through 12. We don't take away members from the churches or the communities. We develop leaders. We participate in many organizations. I am a member of St. John's Armenian Church. I served as chairman of the day, secretary of the day, and nominating committees over the years for our annual parish assemblies. I am a member of the Women's Guild and have chaired rummage sales for the church bazaar for over 10 years. I am a 30-year member of the Daughters of Vartan and have served as at the Grand Council level for 10 of those years. And the Sisterhood of the Daughters of Vartan is non-sectarian, non-political, non-denominational organization. We encourage self-improvement, self-respect, unselfish service to the Armenian people, to all people. It upholds the characteristic virtues of integrity, friendship, devotion, compassion, humility, and Christian love. The single best way to impact an organization is to focus on leadership development. There is almost no limit to potential of an organization that recruits good people, raises them up as leaders, and continues to develop them. When members see your passion and commitment through your actions, they want to be connected to you. Let us remember the past with gratitude, live the present with enthusiasm, and look forward to the future with confidence. and that was said by Pope Paul John II. Hope is not a wish. Hope is action. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Beautiful. All right, that was excellent. Our next speaker is an international relations candidate at Johns Hopkins, president of the Students Government Association, and a public service fellow. She's a former international recruiter. Welcome to the stage, Alena Mikhaelyan.
Bari Lucy Bolorin, Sireli Hayer. I thought I'll start in Armenian shortly. As Sevan shared, I am a graduate student in international relations at Johns Hopkins SAIS, based in Washington, D.C. And today I'm here to add a graduate student perspective to our conversation. At Johns Hopkins SAIS, I am, in addition to being the president of the Student Government Association, am part of the board for the Global Security and Conflict Management Club. And my research focuses on conflict management, understandingly, and AI and national security. Before I proceed, I do want to recognize and express my gratitude to APS, Armenian Professional Society, for supporting my education, as well as AIWA for supporting my graduate studies. I was a scholar last year with you. Thank you so much. I find it particularly symbolic to be sharing these remarks today on the International Women's Day, as well as just a few days after the address of Ruben Vartan to our Armenian nation that was published. Please follow me. Okay, thank you. Please follow me on a little story trail. So there was a young Armenian family in Artsakh that just got married in the 90s, and then the first Nagorno-Karabakh war shook their families' lives. Part of it moved to Riga, Latvia. Part of it stayed in Artsakh. They were separated. Some reunited years later. Then the Soviet Union collapsed. The family moved out from Riga to Kaliningrad, present-day Russia. Then the dark 90s. And then they had two daughters, actually. And years onwards, both of the daughters left the nest and live abroad. Thanks to the incredibly supportive family and vision of the elderly, the younger daughter, one of them went off to pursue her dreams studying abroad, first in Germany, then in Lithuania, France, UK, and living and exploring, embracing cultures of some other 5 countries, as well as volunteering and experiencing Armenia for the first time thanks to Birthright Armenia. By now, I believe you realize the younger daughter is me. I am that daughter that was given wings to fly far away, thanks to all the women before me. I was based in Budapest, working in a private sector in a comfortable office when the second Nagorno-Karabakh war started on September 27, 2020. And that day for me, just like for other Armenians around the world, turned my world upside down. And as I've seen the war, the horrors of that war unveil online, real life, for the following 44 days, I made a decision back then that, it is time to go back to school. And in addition to my degrees in business administration and economics and law, to be involved in international relations. The reason being is that that war clearly demonstrated to me that it is us, it is our generation, it is now, not another state, not another security guarantor who's going to come and save Armenia. And I dream of a transformed Armenia and the South Caucasus region where female leadership is not an exception but the norm. I want to share and bring up to your attention, there is a tale called Anahit, the queen who made the king get a job. Is anyone familiar with that tale? Great. So I was 23 when I first read it. And I thought, wow, what an impactful story, how a queen, an Armenian queen, saved the king from captivity thanks to a military campaign and ultimately saving the Armenian kingdom by the fact that she made him, back in the days before they got married, to learn a craft of silk weaving. And when reading this tale, I remember thinking how my perspective changed, and it surprised me that we actually do have these great, fantastic role models in Armenian folk lore, and how would it be impactful and incredible if girls read this as teenagers. It is a beautiful story about empowering one gender, not at the expense of the other. As we know, the truth is that though the modern societal architectures and structures oftentimes do not support such opportunities for women due to the dominant parental heavy responsibilities and societal perceptions, we lack role models in Armenia. And while all of this is true, it's also true that equal participation and representation of women in public leadership, in political processes, and nation building, in addition to the successful IT sector that we have, is still a critical development. And to summarize, I want to highlight, I believe in three things. First is that had there been more women, or any women, present at certain decision-making and negotiation tables, there would have been fewer wars. Second, I'm also of the view that especially small states like Armenia cannot afford to ignore or underutilize the talent of half of its population. For the reference, there are 55% of women in Armenia. And finally, it is our generation, it is now, and it is our responsibility for building bridges and replacing old regimes with human rights-centric policy making. And women, and those spaces need women to be present there. I will conclude in the last minute when bringing up to everyone's forefront of thoughts that right now in Armenia we have a whole generation of Artsakhi Armenians full of emotions that are not in so many places they can direct. One of the things I've been putting effort to advocate for is raising awareness about careers in international relations. We understand how much frustration there is, anger, mix of emotions, and one way to manage and bring it to some fruition is to direct it to further education. So my call for the audience today is, if you know Armenians and that are young, talented visionaries who are so eager to contribute, and political world, geopolitics is of interest to them, but do not know how, where, what, I kindly welcome you connecting me, and I have a few other peers who are Armenians in graduate schools, in top graduate schools in the US, to mentor them. There is a big road ahead, and we need more Armenians in those spaces to amplify our voices and build our future in the neighborhood we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Alena. All right, so that is the end of our morning session. Feel free to hang around if you'd like and talk. We have 2 hours before our next speaker, our keynote, Emma Arakelyan. Do not be late, do not miss it. You will want to hear it. And that's it, 2 hours. So make good use of your time. Hello. All right, everyone, we're about to start our afternoon session, and we're going to start with the keynote speech from Emma Arakelyan. She is a global management consulting executive, entrepreneur, author, and philanthropist. She's a former partner at EY, Ernst & Young, and former managing director at Accenture. Emma founded Orion Worldwide Innovations and co-founded BAJ Accelerator, empowering Armenian entrepreneurs with IP management, funding, and growth resources for global success. I've had the privilege of seeing her presentation. It's going to be a good one, and I'm very excited to introduce you to Emma.
Sound check. Can you hear me? Not too loud? It's going to get loud. Dear Hyeland Project leadership, organizers, team members, Armenian American Forum 2025 speakers and guests. Since I missed Oscar event, I came with my queen attire today as a statement. We are winners. We are winners. So let's start. It's truly an honor to stand before you today. Oops. Okay. It's truly an honor to stand before you today at this gathering of influential, I'm calling you influential, Armenian Americans, united by a shared commitment to our community's growth and strong future. Special thanks to Sevan Chorluyan for his drive, leadership, and power to bring us together and build this promising community. Congratulations and applause to him. Let's applause to Sevan. Well done, Sevan. As Armenians, we are bound not only by our rich history and cultural heritage, but also by an unshakable spirit. Please pay attention to the adjectives. Unshakable spirit of resilience and innovation. Across industries, from education to science, that we have representatives here. From technology to finance, we have representatives here. From healthcare to arts and music, we have representatives right in this small audience. We have everything. We made and continue making global impact. We do. Let's recognize and applause to us, to this small community that reflects power, resilience, and innovation. Applaud to yourself, please. However, we know very well that true progress does not happen in isolation. It thrives in collaboration, which starts with these types of events. So welcome, you made it. I keep doing this. Let's move on. This conference to me is more than just a meeting of minds. It's a movement. Please take it that way. It's movement. It's a start. It's initiation where we share our successes, and we did throughout the whole morning, identify challenges, which we did during our offline discussions, and build the bridges necessary to share a stronger future for Armenians across this country, which we then take it to diaspora globally, and then we take it to Armenia. Together, for sure, we have that power to turn ideas into actions, which we already started to make during our discussions in the morning, yesterday evening, and during the lunch. So today, I invite you not only to listen, but to engage. Not just to network, but to build real collaboration, and why not partnerships. And most importantly, to leave here inspired and ready to contribute in new ideas. What you've been doing is great, but there is more to do, and new ways of engagement, things you didn't think, consider, or care, but they are here, they are available. A little bit about me as part of the journey that I made. There was some introduction, thank you, Sevan, highlight of who I am as of today. But I am going to take you through a journey, how each of you can take that journey as well. And if you have done some of it, there is more to do. I was blessed to have the opportunity to live and operate in more than 47 countries, working globally while remaining deeply committed to my Armenian values, history, talent, and our nation's impact and future. I was born and grew up in Armenia and moved to New York as an economist by education and profession, but with big mission and dreams, like all of us did. One of my actionable dreams, pay attention, actionable dreams, was to get stronger and contribute to Armenia's nation future and growth. I'm going to share with you today how I made and continue making that dream to realize. During that journey, I was and I am honored and empowered by having Armenian roots. I proudly say, claim, and write everywhere that I'm Armenian, representative of innovative and a builder nation. That brings me to have an identity. And you know what? People respect that. They know how to deal with you when you have identity, and they know your values. That builds trust. My career spans 25 years in corporate America, Fortune 500 companies, as an adjunct professorship at New York University and Columbia Business School, management consulting, digital transformation, banking, mergers and acquisitions, you name it. I've done so much, and so did you in your career and your upcoming jobs or your career. I made it to leadership and executive positions in top global companies, like Sevan mentioned, Ernst & Young and Accenture, and lately joined also Common Venture Capital. These experiences led to my readiness to drive and lead change, and I've done it globally. These experiences also helped me to expand my corporate experience to enter entrepreneurship space with my company, Orion Worldwide Innovations, which I established as of 2017, and I continue to be the CEO and founder of that organization. It's a startup growth ecosystem acceleration hub. I have offices in New York and in Yerevan. Orion Armenia co-founder and CEO Diana Arzumanyan joined this journey with me in 2020 from Yerevan. And by the way, we did actually during the peak time of COVID, which means nothing could have stopped us to move forward and build the company in Armenia. Today, I'm known in the market also as an angel investor, Armen Kherlopian. I'm one of those, as you mentioned. As a venture capitalist, as a venture partner, and I serve at Covenant Venture as a limited partner and a venture partner. And why am I saying all these positions? It's not about position. It's about where I started and where I'm going and where I can go further, which is with your skills, with your network, you can actually capitalize, monetize, and why not democratize everything you have. And I think the formula is how much are you using your potential? Potential is not only skills, potential is everything you have around you, including your friends, your community, your nonprofit organizations, your organization where you are, and in your friends inclusive. Along with Dr. Armen Kherlopian, who spoke earlier, who's my colleague, and Yerman Sarkisyan from London, we also established the Mount Global Angel Syndicate, which I will talk about it later related to that topic. I'm also a published author with a book about true leaders with, I'm listing, responsible, accountable, positive thinking, decision-making values. So all the above doesn't have the power if you don't make decisions with all these first skills that you have. So decision-making is key to anything that you do every day, and timely decision-making. What is my personal connection with this forum? Because some of us are asking, why am I here? Okay, I like Sevan, I came, but why am I here? And what am I going to take away? Shall I just criticize what I didn't like, or I want to take away something that will change me, change people around me, change my nation, and why not change the next generation coming? What are we leaving behind to them? I am here because from the very first call I had with Sevan, I clearly saw and felt that our missions were deeply aligned. So what is that alignment? It was more than just a conversation, which was a long one, by the way. We couldn't stop talking. It was a recognition that we share a common vision of driving impactful change. He's here for change, and we are here to help him to make that change. So if you can't find anything that you can take away, think about how can we help another Armenian in a new place that he came to make the change that he's planning to do. If you take nothing else but that, will be an impactful decision-making. So why am I asking you? Is make that decision at the end of this forum. What are you going to do for this effort that Sevan wants to do? And while you do that, you're actually helping yourself because you're expanding your network. This conference to me is not just an event. It is another moment in strengthening Armenian-American ties. One more thing to take away, the new ties, bringing us together to identify new ways of engagement, to talk about new opportunities for innovation, investment, and economic growth of Armenia. Believe it or not, each of us sitting here is a change maker. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here because you're looking for change. You wanted to do something more and be part of something new. But beyond strategy and collaboration, we are here for something even greater. It's a focal sentence I'm going to make, if you can take note of this. We are here, and I bolded this sentence. We are here to strengthen ourselves as individuals, to uplift our nation, and ensure that legacy we build today becomes the foundation for future generations. Our young Armenian innovators, and we have so many young people, kudos to you being part of this, entrepreneurs and visionaries must, not need, must inherit not just our aspirations, because we have a lot of aspirations as a nation, but also the tangible structures, networks, and opportunities that will allow them to dream even bigger. Not what we dream about. They have to dream bigger, but they can do it only on some foundation that is there for them to build up and be able to dream bigger of what we have. And they need to push boundaries like we do today and create long-lasting global impact. Not in our small community, but global. Why? Because we are globally dispersed everywhere. We have that global power, ladies and gentlemen. We have that power. Please recognize. Another thing to take away. We have power. We're just not using it. We're just not activating it. It's there as a beautiful thing, but it's not. I'm not saying let's get together, because we heard that a lot. It's just each of us can activate some portion, and all of a sudden that becomes not a drop of water, but an ocean. Who doesn't love this sentence? Nation building. Because that's what we are doing. We are building the nation, being in so many different parts of this planet, which planet is our home, honestly, if I put it that way. I'm not sure about Mars, what it is, sister's house or brother's house, but planet is our house. Let this be the start of a new chapter. How about this? Let's call it a new chapter. It's not a new book, it's a new chapter in that book. One where we build not only for ourselves, but for the generations to come. So the decision we make today ourselves is that what we do today is not only for us. Think about your business, think about your career, think about your family, your kids. Everything is absolutely necessary. We are a family builder nation. We love family. We actually, that's part of our major values. But then think about whatever you do, what is it doing for the generations to come? For your kid when they are 25, 30 years old, what are you leaving for them? So if we think that direction, all of a sudden, you will realize what you do is not enough. Absolutely not enough. It's such a small effort, which is good for you only, not for the future. So I'm going to take you through 3 key themes of my speech, and I go through that journey with these 3 themes, and at the end of my speech, you will have 3 key things, 3 areas, how you can get engaged, how you can help with all of these items that I mentioned, and what is the core foundation of how you do that, based on what philosophy or methodology. So 3 themes, key things I have to say is, number 1, innovation. Number 2, investment. Number 3, trade and building wealth and advocacy. So you will take some key actionable items with you based on those 3 areas. My nation-building large-scale projects started actually about 10 years ago with targeting in Armenia innovation, high-tech industry, financial services industry, education space in Armenia. And since then, with my company and with my collaboration with so many organizations, I will mention them as we go further, about 50 programs we completed in technology, law, economic development, education, and have completed, which touched so many people's lives and businesses. One of those projects was the establishment of the U.S. first East Coast Accelerator in 2020, known as BAJ Accelerator. BAJ, or BAJ, some people call it BAJ, stands for Baltic American Chamber of Commerce, plus Orion, my company, which represents A, Armenia, and the J is the Jacobs Technion Cornell Institute, Cornell Tech, that represents Cornell Tech plus Israel MIT school, which is Jacob's Tekeyan. So what did I do with that? The BAJ, A is the Armenia, sandwiched between Baltic states and Israel. What does this mean? We are at the same level with our technology innovation as the other two countries that are well known as technology advanced countries. So with the name, I made a statement. We are one of the three. So small thing like that actually takes it such a further recognition. And with that, with Armen Kherlopian as the co-founder, sitting here, we actually took this to the global venture capitalists, to the global angel syndicates, and we said, we are here. Armenian startups, along with Baltic states and Israeli startups, we are in the market. We are coming. And we started in the East Coast, which actually has a global perspective. To date, we have been honored that 135 founders from 20 countries, from nearly every continent, have graduated our program. 55% of our graduates are startups with Armenian founders or from Armenia. We celebrate this year 5th anniversary of our BAJ. As a matter of fact, we already, for May program, we already have about 30 companies that signed up. So the 135 is going to go higher end of this month May. Orion has established so many new collaborations with nonprofit organizations, with businesses, with venture capitalists, as I mentioned, with syndicates, with businesses, with universities. But I'm going to highlight one or two so then you can actually kind of make a connection that we couldn't do this. Armen and myself and our colleagues, we couldn't do this alone. We had to create collaboration. So since 2020, and even earlier, we established relationships with Garo Armen is sitting here. He's going to present later. Armenian Bar Association. What the heck we do? I'm not a lawyer, but I became a lawyer, by the way. Each of you can become a member of Armenian Bar Association. Lawyers and non-lawyers. Non-lawyers pay only $50, so put it on your budget. Join because they are doing a phenomenal job for Armenia law, for coming up with statements. You can actually check on their website. So they are very active for 30 plus years. So it's not new, but now during these very hard times, they are very active. So what did we do with Armenian Bar Association? So we brought major projects to Armenia. And we have worked with businesses, educators, several ministries in Armenia to improve laws in intellectual property protection. Because I'm in innovation, if innovation is not protected well, then we are actually wasting our time, eventually not having that IP as the startup property or as Armenia property. So intellectual property protection and corporate laws. We learned that in Armenia, no law was protecting minority shareholders' rights, not investors, at least the shareholders' rights. So those two, actually 5 laws have been changed. In 2021, July, they passed in Armenia as laws for intellectual property protection and for corporate law. Those changes have been made. But making the change in the law is something, but in reinforcing or enforcing it to the country, it's different. So we are still working on it. We actually have ongoing jokes of how long is it taking, but it is a lengthy process, but we are trying to work with courts, with judges to actually be able to implement those cases when they become one of the requests. So the law is there, but we are now working on the implementation in all instances in all areas of the country. Since 2019, Orion established a relationship with AIWA, with the Armenian International Women Association, because we had several women in our cohorts that we wanted to present. And believe it or not, one of the first time the nonprofit organization actually invested as a grant to one of these startups in our portfolio. And kudos to Silva, thank you so much for making that kind of a change. So nonprofit organizations, you are not there only to just support. You can invest. You can be part of that growth of that innovation. So it's not a challenge, it's actually eye-opener. How to do it if you don't know, happy to help, because that's what we did with AIWA. So now they have this practice, they know how to do it, they know what they cannot do, but they know what they can do. So nonprofit organizations, add to your bylaws, add to your operations, how 3% of whatever you have can go to different place as an investment, as a participant of the startup innovation ecosystem. That's a big change. It's a big change for Armenian community. It's actually almost non-existent other than this example that I have. So thank you again, Silva. I will move on to the other collaborations. So Orion also established a relationship with Central Bank of Armenia, with Union of Banks in Armenia, with Ernst & Young in Armenia, with BDO in Armenia, because we wanted to create the sector that still doesn't exist. Many of you, we had all these conversations earlier. So since 2022, we started a project initiative. It's called Alternative Investments in Armenia. That means we're taking the investment culture into every single business in Armenia, where businesses create corporate ventures within their company. An example I'm going to bring in the US, mid-sized to large companies, most of them, if not all of them, they have corporate venture investment like M&A, mergers and acquisitions, even divestiture, they spin off companies. Also, they invest in startup ecosystems. Since 2011, it's really billions of dollars for each company. None of that exists in Armenia. They don't do it. There is no culture. There is no. It's not against doing any regulation. Actually allows, but that culture doesn't exist. So what we did with the program, we created this program called, again, Alternative Investments in Armenia. The program, we conducted conferences, summits, power breakfast sessions with business representatives in Armenia and other officials with ministries. Now the initiative is organizing 3 months power consulting days, that's the name of the program, with collaboration of the Central Bank of Armenia, also with a Swiss company that is supporting because they are interested to actually take this. It's called Reconomy. I don't know if you heard about it. They are collaborating with us to take this program, actually take it to the next level. And that's going to happen in April, May, June, 2-day each session. And we're going to invite businesses. What are we doing? We're giving them awareness how they can invest in the ecosystem other than giving loans to the banks. Instead, actually, they can create their corporate venture culture. Since we started late, I'm going to actually cut some things here. It's okay. Let's move on. So I'm adding more juice, more spice into this thinking process. This is the next one. We all know the phrase, think global, act local. From working with so many countries, I quickly realized that global exposure has shaped my understanding of what makes nations and ecosystems to prosper. The key to success, whether for individual, companies, or entire nations, is the ability to build on strengths. And this is not me, Emma, saying. I just embraced this concept, and it applied to me, to even my family, to our businesses, family business, and to everything that I do. Every plan that I make, I'm going to start with, am I good and strong in this space? And as I start thinking about where am I strong at, so then start planning based on strength, not weaknesses. Weaknesses can wait, And then later on, based on your strengths, you can come up with the risk management, mitigation plans about those weaknesses. But start with strengths. So, what are the strengths that we as nation can build upon? Armenians, what are our strengths? We really know our weaknesses everywhere. We're good at it. As a proud representative of Armenian nation, I'm putting all these phrases all the time. As a proud representative of the strong nation of Armenia, I recognize that for centuries, and maybe for thousands of years, Armenians have been known as builders, innovators, and creators. Those are our values, no matter which part of a history, starting from Urartu, going through our medieval ages, coming to even later 18th, 19th, 20th century, even today, we still have these three key values that many nations, many, if not majority, do not have. We have all these three together. We never destroy, we build. We never steal, we create. And we never take somebody's IP, we actually create, we innovate. Do you all agree with those three? Say yes. Anybody doesn't agree? So we have these strengths that we overlook every day. We have this power, it's a strength. So everything we do, we have to now build on these three things. And let me give an example. From the ancient trade networks of Jura, known in English as Julfa. If you don't know, actually, we're going to have, with Sevan's request, I'm going to really go deeper into that area, not assuming that we know, but because it's one of the strongest, latest experience and history page that we have of 300 years, we're going to go a little bit deeper into it. From the ancient trade of the Jura, the technological breakthroughs, imagine technological breakthroughs of today, our resilience and imagination have positioned us always as contributors to global progress. We are the first ones to deny, by the way. I've seen that a lot. Again, Էլի ասում ես հայկականը. Are you saying it's again Armenian? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So let's check the facts, the strengths in the past 50 years. We can go 300 years, we're going to go deeper, but now let's check the past only 50 years. You see this list? I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this. How am I doing on time? 7. Okay, good. Okay, why am I listing microelectronics and semiconductors? You could say, what is this? It's just a couple of professionals in Armenia and you're claiming it, or some couple of scientists in America or in Europe. Hell no. Listen to this one. In the 1980s, just recently, Armenia was the Silicon Valley of the Soviet Union. 30% of the Soviet Union innovation, 30% of Soviet Union innovation was done by Armenians. 1.5 million people, or 2 million, or 3 million, it doesn't matter, 3 million, let's go with 3. 3 million people, which was not even 1% of the entire population. We were bringing 30% of innovation to that country. The legacy continues today. It's not actually gone. With the Armenian-founded companies like Synopsys Armenia. Synopsys Armenia is giving to the world on a daily basis new IPs, intellectual property. They are not there just for our beautiful black eyes, and we do have beautiful black eyes, but they are there for the talent, for the IP. They are generating IP every day, today, and which plays vital role in global semiconductor design. Our Armenian Synopsys workers, or the professionals, they are traveling worldwide every day to present their IP. Did you know that? I actually spoke to the leaders because Armen, Morian, and I went to talk to them, how are you protecting IP from Armenia? The answer was, it's being recorded as non-Armenian because synopsis is Armenia is just a branch, so it goes into US, but still, they actually recognize some of it as it came from, so origination is Armenian. But we still have some work to do. How do we collect it as Armenian? We still don't have it, for many reasons I mentioned earlier, because the justice court, not now that still is in place to do that. Okay, next one I mentioned is AI machine learning. Well, I'm going to list a couple of companies. PixArt, you heard about it? No. Skyla, Cognaze, SuperAnnotate, Zero Systems, Hercules Product, Active Loop, Christ. They're founded by Armenian entrepreneurs, and they are globally known and globally used. They touch millions of lives today. Those are Armenian companies. Biotechnology and healthcare foundation, the FAST Foundation, as you all know about it, they actually started a major campaign, and I'm one of their donors as Orion, to support their artificial intelligence, biotech, and life science education program that they started. Please learn what they do. They actually do every quarter the updates of what they are doing, how many new kids are learning AI and everything, because that's something for future generation. We have to prepare them. We have to give them that opportunity not to fall behind, because right now we are not behind, but we are not there yet, where we could, because we are not combining our thinking processes. This many people are sitting here. Where is your role in this space that I'm talking about? So think about it and make decisions, not just listen, engage, not just network, but be part of it. So engineering and aerospace, Armenians have contributed significantly in NASA. Well, I think we heard here some places, but I'm going to give specific names. I did some research to make sure that I get the right names and the right place to give credits. Dr. Asadur Sarafyan, Dr. Alenush Terian, Dr. Armen Derkurerian, and other Armenian engineers involved in Mars rover and space technologies. Dr. Armen Kherlopian sitting among us. Armenjan, would you stand up? Because we need to know. You're taking care of Mars. Come on. Thank you. So why am I asking Armen to stand up? Because he is in a research group preparing human health for planet Mars. We're already doing it. We are thinking about it, how the human can survive and what kind of a health preparation you have to do, what kind of food you have to have today here on the planet, and how you prepare yourself on Mars. It's real, it's happening. So we have this great participation. Kudos, Armen. 10 minutes? Okay. I have to really fasten up. So digital trade and innovation, and then we're going to go into digital Julfa. So 2 specific areas, I'm going to go very fast here. 2 specific areas, it's invest in education and talent and support startup ecosystem and venture capital growth. I now have to go move on for the next one. I did mention some of this, that engaging in innovation means be aware of what kind of companies we're talking about, Armenian companies that are in the space. And this is not just, when I say startup, don't think about startup that doesn't have any money, they just have an idea and they have 2 or 3 developers. That's not the startup anymore. That was like 2001, 2003. This is ecosystem. It's very serious body that has companies that are very serious, young people, and also some people that they are part of the company. They are very experienced, and they bring all this knowledge and network with them. So understand, I'm going to give some list of companies, and you could see the ways to engage, and these are just some examples. There are 4 listed here. You can start with those, and then you can go deeper, like what other companies are like this, and then all of a sudden you understand this entire ecosystem of how startups get engaged with investors. By the way, how many are you investors in startup from this audience? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, somebody shied away. Yes or no at the end? No? Okay, 4 people out of the 40. It's not 0. Let's say thank you. But at the same time, is this enough? If you would be sitting in another audience with other nations, that the number will be very different. It will be 4 that didn't participate, the others did. So we have that issue that we need to resolve. So make that decision, how you want to get engaged here. This is the future of Armenia. The technology, remember, even Garo Armen, he said technology. Everybody knows it because technology is what's going to give us fast growth and sustainable growth. You will have this presentation next week. Sevan will share with you exactly how you see it. You will receive it. So I'm not going to go detailed. You can actually go to these companies. The links are there. All you have to do is click. By the way, click when it's in a PDF version, view version. Otherwise, you will not be able. So click, check, read, at least get educated what we have today. You are not allowed not to know what's there. It's actually a guilt to live with if you still pay no attention what's going on, because this is driving our economy, this is driving our future, this is driving our kids' future, and it's driving Armenia's safety. There is a next one that, so Covenant Venture, the reason I specifically highlight that, a couple of years ago, this company would not even know where Armenia is. Now they come to Armen and I, who is the CEO of the venture capital. Not only we got in, now we are in a leadership role already. It's now, what is it, 3 years, Armen? In 3 years, Armenian professionals like us, we brought so much value of bringing, knowing the ecosystem, not only for Armenians, but highlighting Armenian, put it on the top list. But we work globally, but we are putting special attention to Armenian startups, to making sure that we give them the full potential growth, possibility, and opportunity. So now, these 3 companies, look at how big they are. Did you know that? These are Series B, Series D level companies. And by the way, the reason I brought it up, super annotate, that round is closed. Actually, we closed it in December. But PixArt and Gecko are open. So if anything, just for your education, say, Emma Armen, I would like to understand more, what is this company? Like every investor does. Just start reading, get engaged, ask good questions, ask bad questions, or ask no questions, but at least know how the world is investing in ecosystem. It's not in startup, it's ecosystem. You're actually supporting employees, jobs, education, future, everything. Okay, now we're going, as you can see, the story gets evolved. I started as Emma professional, and then I got into Angel Network, and then I got into venture capital. Then I invested myself. By the way, how many companies do you think I already invested in 5 years? Just give me a number. Okay? 100? Oh, I'm going to get there. 20. I invested in 20 companies. So I'm not preaching something that I'm just saying ask you to do. I've done it, which means Armen and I have so much experience where to invest, why to invest. I'm not saying everything will grow because the company has to grow and we give them advice and everything. But how much do you know about these big companies that are getting into becoming IPO companies? And Armen brought up the Service Titan. If some of the businesses in Armenia would invest, even banks, they would actually make a lot of money. Millions of money, millions of dollars just in this one company IPO. But they didn't. It was all US money, all US investors, all US VCs. We had no presence, other than 1,000, I think, employees that got that 40 million that Armen was saying. So out of the billions, out of the $10 billion, we got 40 million. Shame. We could have got more if we would participate from the beginning and be part of that company. We have some of those available. I'm going to go into Julfa. Why am I talking about Julfa? It was one of the strengths, remember? The innovation, trade, building wealth, and advocacy. Julfa was announced on June 22nd, 2022. Mark Chenyan, you were there too. Armen, you were there too. I don't know who else was there. But it was about 150 people event at Madenadaran, and we announced Digital Julfa. I had a very long story of how Julfa was born. You look at the dates. It's a 300-year-old network. I have 3 minutes, so I have to fit into 3 minutes quickly. What I want to highlight is this network was born when old Jura, 170,000 people were moved forcefully by Shah Abbas to Isfahan. But the spirit of Armenian nation was not only they survived, they actually created the biggest center of trade in Iran, in Persia at that time, and then actually they expanded it to 40 plus countries worldwide, Middle East, Europe, Far Asia, including Hong Kong and Manila, the Philippines. And then went all the way to London, Amsterdam, and then all the Europe, Middle East, of course, I mentioned, and they even made it to Mexico, to Americas. So that became the first effort of trade, of business, to go global. So Armenians established first time the globalization concept through trade. And it was not just a trade like Areftur. It was policies, it was rules, laws, agreements, contracts, and everything was based on one major component. What was it, you think? I heard the word. Exactly. Trust. Something we lack of today. So when they say Armenians are not trustworthy, they do this, they do that, especially about Armenia, post-Soviet Armenia, that's not the Armenian nature. We build trust for the trade, financial services, banking foundation of banking processes and contracts. We built that during that 300 years, from 1700 to 1900. Okay, I'll make it. Just read about Shahmirian's family, Shahmirian family, Lazarev family, Lazaryan family, Tatevian, and Abkar. These four families together, they established the entire banking and financial services culture and industry that we operate today with those. I may actually give you, Sevanjan, I will give you that page where I was actually going into history, or you can actually learn about it in this website. So with Sevan's request, I actually put this website. This was announced during the Global Armenian Summit in Yerevan last September, that this website is now bringing back, reviving Julfa culture in the 21st century as digital Julfa. This is one of the first websites that is on Meta platform, which utilizing metaverse and also Web3, which is ready for future for any kind of trade. And what we are doing, we are bringing Armenian businesses to operate globally today to revive the trade culture based on trust. You can read this in the history section. It tells about everything that I was going to cover today. We have an event upcoming. You can actually, when you go to the website, you can sign up to be on a virtual first event that we want to do. Again, raising awareness globally. So we are doing this in several countries we're going to do, starting with Dubai this year. We have this digital Julfa Dodge that Karen is wearing, please. You can actually look at it. It's the Dodge of digital Julfa. The design is made in Armenia by Tony Weddings and Orion together. We have the IP, by the way, we took the IP, and the design is from the old Julfa wood-carved piece that we made it into this Dodge. So it's available, become the member of this network. We revived, you start talking about it, you wear it and start walking around and say, did you know about Julfa? Because people don't know, we are the ones who established this industry, this entire trade industry, Armenians are foundation. Okay, there is another page, and how you engage in innovation, in venture capital investments, and trade. I gave you all the three, and I close with this. Who is the caring leader? Should be action-driven, change engine, that is making fast, considerate, informed decision. Now everything came together that I started is in one sentence. This is who you want to be as an Armenian to take our nation to the next level, and we can. We are really strong nation. We have all the components to make this happen. Thank you.
Amazing, Emma. Thank you so much. I would have liked you to keep going, but we're on a tight schedule. You did excellent. All right, so we're going to have another networking session. Before we go, Gloria and Charlene asked that if you please plan to see the exhibit right out here. It's going to be taken down around 4. So you have 1 hour to see all the interesting things they collected and learn the history there. So thank you. Let's keep the event going.
All right. Our next guest is the managing editor of the Armenian Mirror-Spectator, an executive director of the Tekeyan Culture Association of the United States and Canada, as well as a historian by training, specializing in modern Armenian history. Please welcome Aram Arkun.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I find that going to these kinds of events, whether they're in Armenia or in the United States, is great because, number one, we get to talk to a lot of interesting people who are dedicated and doing a lot of work in different fields. And number two, sometimes we come up with very interesting ideas. And, you know, I like this drone. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm in a very different, more traditional field, working kind of on identity. We published this newspaper, Armenian Mirror-Spectator. I put some copies at the very front desk with where your tags were. But I'm going to start. I actually have 2 different jobs. I kind of switch back and forth at half-time and one half-time another that are related. So I'm also the executive director of the Tekeyan Cultural Association of the United States and Canada, which is the major financial supporter for the Mirror-Spectator. So I'll start with that because a lot of you, I believe, don't know as much about this organization. It's sort of a mid-sized organization in our ecosystem in the United States and Canada. It starts with, at the moment, we have 7 chapters in different parts of the country. And many of these chapters, 4 of them have buildings or centers in which they have activities. And they have local cultural activities because the main goal of the organization is to promote Armenian language and culture. And it was started in the name of the Prince of Armenian Poetry, Vahan Tekeyan, who passed away 1945. 2 years later, in the Middle East, a group of people decided to establish an organization, his name, to promote Armenian identity and try to expand through not just to the Middle East, but eventually different parts of the world, including anywhere from South America to Argentina to Australia. And we have, in the United States, we had auxiliary groups from the early 1950s that supported Vahan Tekeyan School in Beirut that was built. And then in 1969, it was formally created legally as an organization in Massachusetts, which is where I'm based. So this organization basically also has a central board. So the organization and its local level are all volunteers, and they all have different activities. In some parts of the US and Canada, we've had drama groups, theatrical groups. Other parts we have musical groups. Other parts we have just cultural events. In Boston, we have both a lot of cooking events lately because there seems to be a lot of interest in Armenian traditional cuisine, as well as, more, let's say, educational, historical, and political events. So it's a wide variety of events, and it's an organization that's been going on for a long time. But like all Armenian organizations, it faces the same issues of trying to get young people, the next generation involved, and this is all an ongoing experiment. We're all in this experiment together, and we all are trying different ways. We always, whenever we get together, we think, what can we do? How can we get new people? How can we get our own children or grandchildren involved? And we try different things, and hopefully together we can find a way to preserve what's so valuable and strong about our culture, so that, to keep Armenia going, to invest in Armenia, to provide Armenia, whether it's military technology or economic innovations, we need ourselves to be strong. We need to invest in ourselves as communities, whether it's in Tennessee, something that's starting here, or whether it's in our more established communities, California, East Coast, Midwest. So these are things that our organization works and thinks about. And also occasionally, unfortunately, as you all know, the last 30 years have been very dramatic. On the one hand, very exciting, inspiring things happened in Armenia and Artsakh, but also very tragic events have unfolded, and not just there, but in our traditional communities in the Middle East. So Tekeyan, although it's not primarily a philanthropic organization, has stepped up and it provided aid. Let's say during the 2020 war, it raised, and partly it donated $110,000 to the Armenia Fund. What happened is another story, but aid to Aleppo Armenians, where there's local Tekeyan chapters. Tekeyan is like decentralized, so there are Tekeyan bodies that we have, let's say, fraternal relations with, but legally we're not, let's say, in some sort of hierarchical relationship. But we help them. We help the Tekeyan school in Beirut still. So it's a wide variety of things. We have 5 schools in Armenia that were called Tekeyan schools that we support. We've done that for, I think, 30 some odd years, where we have a sponsored teacher program. We provide aid to teachers. We used to have a school in Petrosyan and Artsakh, unfortunately no longer with us. We've also had programs to support some of the refugees from Artsakh, providing them with means of making a living in Armenia. And we collaborate sometimes with other organizations like in Syunik that provide cows or provide hives for honey making and things like that. So it's a wide range of things. Even though our mission is primarily cultural, we couldn't just, not help when we saw what was going on. And I'd like to talk briefly also about our newspaper. The Armenian Mirror-Spectator is actually an old newspaper. I believe it was the first in the United States as an English language newspaper from 1932. We celebrated our 90th anniversary some time ago. And it's an organ of the Armenian Democratic Liberal, it goes fast, organ of the Armenian Democratic Liberal Party, but it's open to all different points of view, both in terms of our diaspora in existence as well as what's going on in Armenia. So, you know, we're happy. We might accept both criticism and hopefully constructive criticism of things that are going on, but also sometimes some people will write in a different way. And we always are looking for new writers, for new columnists. So if any of you know people or yourselves are interested in writing, we're looking for you. And we're always looking to expand. We have a website, Mirror-Spectator.com. It's free of access. We have a weekly, 2 times a week email blast. And we also have a PDF version of the print newspaper. So a lot of ways you can use the paper. We, of course, appreciate donations and subscriptions. It's not a money-making process, but you can access everything for free if you wish as well. So I think I've run out of time, but if you're interested, I'd love to talk to you. I'm happy that my colleague I've just met, who I hadn't met before, a new editor of another newspaper also in Boston, is here. And we kind of, I think it's important that we, these are sort of ways of connecting us as a community. It's both now in the digital world, but also in the real world. And we allow people to come together virtually to discuss things, even if we're not, you might be living here in Nashville, but you can still interact with other Armenians through our pages, both digitally and in print. And we hope that, you know, we're able to continue and that's our goal, to continue in the future to do that. So we do it both through the newspaper as well as through Tekeyan. If you have any further questions, I'll be happy to talk with you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Aram. What a great speech. Our next guest is Editor-in-Chief of the Armenian Weekly, spotlighting Armenian culture, history, and politics in the diaspora. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lilly Torosyan.
Բարև բոլորին, Parevner, do both Eastern and Western. So yeah, very excited and humbled to be here after hearing so many interesting and fruitful discussions today. I'm going to be talking about the Armenian Weekly, which is it's a paper with a very long history, also based in the Boston area, like the Mirror-Spectator. So it is the English language newspaper of the Hyeland Association. The Hyeland has been around since the 1890s. I believe it's the oldest extant diasporan paper. So we came later in the 1930s, created by mainly that first Armenian, American-born Armenian American generation. There was a need to create some sort of forum for this young community to engage with their Armenian culture and community outside of the Armenian language because they could not read and write. So as a response to all of those letters to the editor, the editors decided that they would just start an English language publication 2 years after the Mirror-Spectator did. So I think for me what's exciting is the fact that the roots of the paper are very much informed by the youth. And I'd like to still think that I represent that demographic. I believe right now the paper is the youngest it's been, ironically enough. All of our core team were all women. On behalf of International Women's Day, I thought I could spotlight that. And I'm the oldest member of the team, so we're very young. We represent diasporas from Iran to Syria to Armenia, US, like Eastern, Western. We have queer Armenians. We have it's a very interesting group right now where if we're talking about diversity, that's one of the big themes here. I think how we have this incredible legacy of 100 years of being space for voices for the Armenian community in this country to have an outlet. And now as this next 100 years goes, I think it will be, it's a little intimidating, I have to say, to see what that's gonna look like, because after listening to so many of the speeches today about technology, all of these amazing organizations utilizing technology in incredibly innovative ways. We started out with Garo Armen talking about cancer research. We had people talking about, like Stepan, about building drones and planting trees with ATP. And I think all of these are incredibly active ways of exerting and living an identity that is incredibly exciting, and it's less about the same old how to preserve or maintain Armenianness in whatever context, and actually doing things, right, for the diaspora, for Armenia. Utilizing this resource that I think Aram touched upon a little bit, and we talked about it a little bit when we were introduced to each other today, about how a newspaper, a print media, survives in this context. I think technology for us is a little scarier. Like when Garo was talking about his writer kids being a little weary of AI. For us, I think how we utilize new forms of media and communication, whether that's social media, whether that's, I don't know what that could look like in the next decades, will be incredibly important for us. But I also want to stress that it's something that's incredibly vital, and I think I'm very excited to see what that will look like for the next generation, because when the papers were founded 100 years ago, there weren't any other options. There were no phones, let alone AI and social media. So that was a very vanguard way to interact and link all of these different communities together. And for me, I'm incredibly humbled for so many reasons, but one of the things that came up a lot for me in terms of language is the very early roots of the paper. In the 1890s, as a lot of us may know, this was the first generation of Armenian Americans to come here, were mainly laborers and also survivors of the Hamidian massacres. So the paper in that generation was an important way for them to get communication and news from their families abroad. And after the genocide, during and after the genocide, it served a very crucial role that I didn't grow up knowing, and so I wonder how many here will know that there were bulletin boards, essentially, for years after the genocide of Armenian Americans who were posting listings, just looking for their lost relatives. And in the Armenian language, the Hyeland version, they would always start with big, bold, Gapındervin, which is passive voice. They are being searched for. So I thought, how interesting that they're using passive voice to do something that is so active in really rebuilding and repairing family trees, essentially, finding missing branches in a time when there were, like I said, no telephones, not even telegram. So I think that it's incumbent upon us to not be so afraid of change and incorporating these new technologies, because I think it's in the spirit of the paper in those early days. Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to say that for us it's a little bit, it's a little different coming at it from the perspective of a media organization, and a lot of people talk about how print media is dead, and I think perhaps in that particular form it might be, but seeing all of these amazing initiatives that I think could be tapped into with yeah, the media world, the traditional Armenian world, media world. I think I'm very excited to get to know more of you. Gonna do a little bit of the same pitch that Aram did about, please, if you want to write for us, with us, if you want your organizations, your initiatives spotlit, we really want to, yeah, be that bulletin board, I guess, in a different capacity now, hopefully lighter, but not always. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilly, for the very thoughtful presentation. All right, so for those that went to the wine tasting yesterday, did you have a good time? Was it well put together? How about today? Is everyone liking today? All right, so I'm getting a lot of praise for this, and a lot of it is undue, because without our next speaker, the event would not be as polished, it would not be functioning this well. I can promise it would be borderline disrespectful. So this next speaker is a powerhouse. I feel very blessed to call her my partner on the Hyeland Project. She is a burgeoning real estate developer, and she shares her work on her YouTube channel called Nairaville. Welcome to the stage, Naira, Ayvazyan.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sevan. I think I can lower this or grow taller. All right. Well, it took us quite a bit to put this together, and we've been so busy that I have to say I have not prepared a speech, but the silver lining is you cannot misspeak or mess up if you don't have a speech. So here we go. So I want to take this time to talk about the Hyeland Project. What is it? How did we found it? Why did we found it? And what we hope to accomplish with it. So Hyeland Project, I feel like I have to first start the opportunity or the gap that we saw before I say what it is. So I was on a journey to find home, and I am from New York City. I'm very entrepreneurial. I always see the world into a certain vision. I want to know how I can both help myself and the community, and I'm very proud Armenian, and every friend I have would know that. And I wanted to find peace and quiet and rural living that would allow me opportunities to continue that spirit, but in peace. So I stayed shop for quite a while. I went from New York City to Portland, where my family was from, and I didn't like Portland. And then I dragged the entire family to Texas, and then lived there for a few years, and we did not like Texas. And we realized that the research needs fine-tuning. And then I think we ended up in Tennessee, not we as a first me. Then I thought maybe it's time to look globally. I went to Italy, didn't like the bureaucracy, went to Armenia, didn't like the wars and some other things, but the food was really great this time around. And I settled back in Tennessee. I came back to Tennessee, and I thought this is a really great place that has incredible climate, very reminiscent of Armenia, and where we ended up calling home, which is the Upper Cumberland of Tennessee. It's actually very much, it looks just like Dilijan. I would take a picture and you would not know that's not Dilijan, Armenia. So it feels like home, it's beautiful, it has 4 seasons. The state itself is very responsible with their budgeting. It's things that we really wanted to focus on: tax laws, freedom rights, freedom rankings, a great place that we can, he can raise his kids in with Armenian values, but for us also to have opportunities to grow. Just it's something that has good bones to build on. And that's how we came to this part. And the way we thought this is a good project is because as Armenians, we ended up actually on the road together searching for the exact same thing. We met in Tennessee and we realized we're looking for the exact same thing. And we realized also that we searched the web and we could not find any existing Armenian communities in rural Tennessee. Or not Tennessee, I'm sorry, in rural America in general. Any community we can go and tag along with in a way to start. And we thought that, there's a lot of Armenians that congregate in New York City, in LA, Boston, New Jersey. And there's a lot of us that want a little bit of more peace and quiet, ability to homestead, ability to know what ends up on your plate, yet we just can't find each other. And I personally know Armenians who have actually ventured and moved from California to a random state they picked, and then they were feeling isolated and a bit alone, and they went back to an Armenian community. So our goal here is to close that gap so that like-minded entrepreneurial Armenians who want peace and quiet in a great place, also stress-free, because that's, you can do a lot when there's less stress. So we ended up founding this project. And Sevan identified the Free State Project that I didn't know actually anything about, which is what we modeled it after. Free State Project was something that took place in New Hampshire, was it? And this was a group of libertarian friends that just wanted to build the world they wanted to live in. And they started a project that's very free in nature, in a sense that they're not dictating what you get to do when you come to New Hampshire. It's just like, hey, come here, buy a home, build a home, do whatever you want, just move here and let's start a community. And essentially, I think as of last year, they had 20,000 plus people that had moved, and it just keeps growing. And if you guys go to their website, you can see what kind of community they've built just on libertarian values that they shared together. And I think there's massive strength in that. And one opportunity that I see, well, among a million, but one that I see for this project is as the community grows, there's just endless possibilities of what kind of partnerships can form, be it as small but important as families, to business partnerships, to building the cities, small cities into what am I trying to say? The bigger opportunities. Like, for example, New York City is so built up. You can be there and you can constantly work in that environment. But here, you can really make a difference because you can give that community, not just beyond Armenian communities, something that they need, as well as grow yourself as a community. And one thing that I aspire to do, for example, is I always wanted to build a village, kind of like a retreat where it's full sustainability, and it can bring people that are a bit, like they were born and raised here, to be able to learn about food and understand nutrition as well as health, stress, and so on. So me wanting to build a village, Sevan, he can speak for himself later, but wanting to build a town, we realized we have a lot in common. And as the community builds, I also actually really hope we can find passionate Armenians, and I already could hear a lot of Armenians in this crowd that were very passionate about the Armenian identity, history, preservation of our history. And one thing that I really want to do one day is just find a nice hilltop of Tennessee that looks exactly like Dilijan, and then build an medieval style Armenian church. And my plan with that is not just the church, but what I want to do with that basement of the church. And I really want to start translating our literature, translating our history, translating the history about us from our neighboring nations through history, because there's so much that's lost, that's deep in the archives. And today you just search Wikipedia and it just brings up all sorts of nonsensical things. And the most ancient DNA is getting lost in the mix because we're economically not that strong. We don't have a lot of lobbyists and we don't have a lot of money to spend to be what some of our neighboring cultures are doing in suppressing our identity. So we have to basically build a future where we can make sure that that's preserved and also have a really good strategy how to expand on that. And if God forbid something happens, hope not, we have a good plan forward to actually come back, rebuild, and be stronger than ever. All right?
Well done, Naira. Thank you. I'm sold. I want to move to Tennessee. All right. So our next speaker is another absolute powerhouse of a woman. She's the former radio host of the Heritage of Armenian Culture program and co-author of the Remarkable Armenians blog. And she is also half of the team that put together the presentation that you are all enjoying right outside documenting notable, interesting Armenian Americans and our history. So, welcome to the stage, Charlene Apigian. And we're gonna want both mics for this one. And to help, not help, but to make this an interesting interactive thing, we're gonna have her son, Charlie, and it's gonna be a little bit of a surprise. I'm not sure what's gonna happen.
Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to our home, since we are both Nashvillians. I knew 25 years ago, or 23 years ago, that if I moved here, there would be a Hyeland Project coming, and it just took a couple of years to happen. And I'll tell you what, I started our clock, so I don't have to look at you, Sevan, during this time. And we've got 7 minutes and 54 seconds left. And what I'd like to do a little differently is we've heard about organizations. What I'd like to highlight with you are the people. And let's start with you. And how did you get involved or interested in researching Armenians and really getting involved with learning about the culture at a very young age?
I wasn't that young when I started, except that when I was a child, in those days, kids got all kinds of things, measles, mumps, and stuff, and you were home for a week from school. What was there to do? Well, we didn't have a TV yet, and so I read. We had the Book of Knowledge. It was like 10 or 12 big books, and I would read it all the time, and always learning something new. And, you know, for a little kid that was a little bit different than her neighbors, although no problem, but anyway, it was an escape for me. Go forth 30-some years, and I was asked to join a group of people that were putting a new radio program on in Detroit.
The Heritage of Armenian Culture.
Yes, the Heritage of HARC. We called it HARC. And Edmund Azadyan, who is known pretty well with anybody that reads the Armenian report, Mirror-Spectator, I'm sorry. Anyway, he had come to Detroit from Boston, and there was a similar radio program there, and he wanted to have something that was a little bit different than the usual Armenian radio hour. So what we featured was anything written by or performed by Armenians. We did interviews. We did, matter of fact, one of my favorite interviews was with a sculptor by the name of Ruben Nakyan. Anyway, it was a total wonderful experience for me. I met many people, and I started out by asking them, so where are you getting your information? Where do you go to find this information? Oh, well, you know, we read this and that, and everything he said that he was reading was in an Armenian language book. Well, that didn't help me any. I didn't read it fast enough. So I said, would you like me to set up some kind of a library or something, you know, that you can go back on and check out things and so on and so forth? And they said, yeah, let's see what you come up with. Well, by the time I left, 15 years later, I had set up 7 4-drawer cabinets, okay, filing cabinets, 4.5 actually, and with all kinds of things that I thought was interesting. It did help, and as it turned out, within 5 years, I was the host. And so I helped myself in that respect. And I learned from Edmund how to write a script, and so then I was the associate producer. So I had all this responsibility. I did it for a few years, and then I got burned out, and I pulled away from it. But at the same time, my friends that were in the Daughters of Vartan with me said, you know what, we need an educational thing here. Charlene, you're pretty good in that stuff. And I thought, what are they talking about? Well, I found that I knew how to go ahead and find out stuff, and I wrote out something simple, and I would tell them about it. And then one year, my son helped me put together, I think 6 or 7 ladies that were remarkable in my mind. And we did it on a Zoom because it was COVID time.
Yeah, that's right.
And after that, he said, Mom, I think you ought to write a blog. I said, I'm not giving up any of my recipes because that's the only thing I heard about, right? And he said, no, Mom. He says, you know, you're doing all this stuff. You're setting up displays with Gloria, Korkoian, and another friend of ours, Doris, Korkoian, yeah, Doris Korkoian, okay. So the three of us started looking at what we had in the house about Armenians, and we went to libraries and set up displays. And then after a while, I said, you know, this is good, but what about our own children? The children in our churches and stuff, and people in general in church. Let's make some posters about these remarkable people, and we'll put it up in the churches.
And I'm going to...
And Gloria told you about that earlier.
She can't let me talk now, too, either. I love my mom. But I do want to get to those remarkable Armenians.
Yeah.
So you are putting those on the posters. We've now done over 20 blogs on different Armenians. And we decided when to call it Remarkable Armenians. And we started, I think, in September of 2019 with William Saroyan as our first one.
Yes.
And so can I ask you a little bit about Remarkable Armenians?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to ask you your favorites, and it's got to be the name, and then we're going to make everybody else go to the website to read about them. But favorite or most memorable musician?
Well, most memorable musician.
Favorite musician that you did a blog for or a poster? You had the questions ahead of time. You should already have them ready to go.
It's hard. I can't give a, no, because they're all different. Can't do it.
I know that you've always talked about Charles Aznavour. And of course, if you went to writers, there's so many writers that you could mention.
There's so many writers, but beyond that, let's go to people like, what the heck was his name? Vahe Karapetyan in California. He came here and was working for somebody fixing buses, I think school buses or something, and he asked if he could have this one crappy bus that was in the back that they weren't using, could he try something with it? And his boss said, yeah, go ahead. And he came up with this wonderful food truck. And it was like, oh my God, it really worked. And so he's still, I hope he's still in his 80s. He might be in his 90s by now. Still goes to work every day.
Yep.
And I was really amazed with that. And I thought, let me see what else I can find out about these people. But I read George Mardikian's book, and I had to write about him, Omar Khayyam, the wonderful restaurant. But all the stuff that man did for the United States services during World War II, he went and helped them give oh my God, all of our men in uniform a better meal.
Now, I know we already have 1 minute to go.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I'm looking at all these amazing names. For example, Alex and Marie Manugian, Oscar Banker, James Bagyan, of course, Nubar Afeyan, Ray Dumadian, George Mardikian, Yusuf Karsh in his amazing pictures, Hampart Kalikian, Jane Mahakian, my favorite, Emek Avakian, because of all his inventions, and of course, Steve Muger, as well as, did I say Oscar Banker? I don't remember if I did.
That's right.
Yeah, and so all of these are just amazing, and Ken Katchiguian as well. I'm going to say my favorite and most remarkable Armenian. Ready? It is you, and the amazing stuff that you have done over the years has made me want to be a remarkable Armenian. And people like you are motivating people like us to be remarkable Armenians. So I have to let you have the last word. Why are Armenians remarkable?
How are they?
Why are Armenians remarkable?
Because we know how to endure. We get slammed down. They try to kill everybody. and we just take the dust off, get together with others, and start over again and again and again through the centuries. And if you want to read 5,000 years worth of history, brand new book, The Enduring Armenians. And it's all from information from people that know about this, that have studied it, and I'd give you their names, but it's gone out of my brain right now. But look it up, The Enduring Armenians. Okay?
And I'll tell them to look up your wonderful blog. And if
Please
you haven't
go
met my
to
mom
yeah,
yet, please
remarkablearmenians.com.
do. She will make your day like she makes mine every day. So thank you, Mom.
Thank you. Okay, this was fun. Thanks. Thank you.
You did great. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I know.
You did great. All right, real quick before we take a very brief break, Julie Kupelian will share a little bit about Sweet Armenia Bakery. Come on down.
Thank you, everyone. I have loved today. It's just so great to see all of us together. I'm Julie Kupelian Keltonic, owner of Sweet Armenia Bakery. I'm here locally in Nashville, Tennessee. I supply baklava all around the city at different coffee shops and restaurants, and my proceeds go to Young Life Armenia. I would love it if everyone would take out your phones and just Google Young Life Armenia right now. I want all of us to connect because this is a ministry. Young Life started in America in 1941. Now they have camps and the ministry, Christian ministry, in over 100 nations, including Armenia. There is a camp for middle and high schoolers about an hour, 90 minutes outside of Yerevan. They host 3,000 plus kids at summer camps and winter camps. All over the country of Armenia, they meet every week in what they call clubs, which is like 50 to 100 kids, and then they all come together. The influx of refugees from Artsakh has been that's really what caught my attention. I started my business 4 years ago at the end of 2020 when Artsakh was attacked. So please connect with Young Life Armenia. Please come see me for the baklava. Right now, with the 3,000 kids that they're supporting, they only have 45 donors total. So I know what Emma spoke about and others, that the next generation is the future of Armenia and that we need to be connecting right now to nonprofits. So please come speak to me. Please come buy the baklava. I don't want to take it home. And thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll take a brief break and come back for our last session of the day. All right, here we go. Our first speaker of the last intro session is the Congressional Relations Director at the Armenian Assembly of America, where she advocates for Armenian American interests on Capitol Hill. Please welcome Mariam Khaloyan.
Good afternoon, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank Sevan and Naira for this amazing opportunity putting together the Hyeland Forum. I see so many familiar faces, whether it's been in DC where we've met or throughout the country where we've had interesting conversations about advancing US-Armenia relations. Myself, Mariam Khaloyan, working in DC at the Armenian Assembly, started off as an intern. Myself am from Armenia. And interesting enough, I'm actually the fourth person in this room who's done the Armenian Assembly internship program, including Sevan back in 2009. So a round of applause to those who did the Armenian Assembly internship. That very much shaped my way of where I am today, starting with grassroots, and then seeing an opportunity on Capitol Hill, where we needed to advance our voices and make sure that we're heard, taking on the role of congressional relations. A few years ago, we started on a project with the Armenian Assembly, taking on a model of what Jewish Americans do on Capitol Hill, inviting tens of thousands of them, where their voices are heard loud and clear, to the point where members of Congress don't even have to get visited in their offices. they go into their conference space and ask, what is it that we could do for them? In that same format, we invite Armenian Americans to come to DC every year almost. In COVID, we did a hybrid format, which helped us connect with many Armenian Americans that weren't able to travel to DC, and that created a domino effect of those who were interested in doing advocacy. Listening to Emma earlier today made quite an impact of ensuring how AI and technology, as well as advocacy, taking action together, how that impacts. So many of you might be wondering, what is it that I can do that can be impactful as an Armenian American? And whether you're in the field of medicine, whether you're a lawyer, whether you work in a nonprofit, you as an Armenian American has a voice on Capitol Hill. And I'd like you to come to DC and make that voice heard. There are so many different groups that come in and make sure that their members of Congress know what their issues are. And we shouldn't be falling any less than them and going in and making sure that our issues are heard. The event is going to take place March 31st to April 2nd, coinciding the Armenian Genocide commemoration on Capitol Hill on April 2nd. April 1st will be a day where you learn about advocacy, you'll learn about the various issues that are going to be relevant in your conversations with members of Congress. And the following day, you'll be grouped together with different Armenian Americans from various states all around the country, and you'll go in from office to office, making sure that your voices are heard and the various legislation that are pending are moved forward. I do that on a regular basis alongside a few colleagues who I see here in the audience, who you might have heard from earlier today. Therefore, I'm here as sort of a reinforcement to what you most likely heard Gev speak from the Armenian National Committee of America, where we hold hands and ensure that voices are heard. So not only is it important that you're here today networking with one another, but it's also important for you to take action while you're in DC. So if you have any other questions, I'll be around to answer them for you. Lastly, if you know any college students who are interested in advocacy, whether they're your nieces, your nephews, your sons and daughters who'd like to participate in advocacy, who are maybe not able to travel to DC, we offer a scholarship program this year, and as well as last year we did, where we invite college students to come to DC for the few days to experience what it's like to advocate on Capitol Hill. So again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you later this evening. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Mariam. All right. Our next speaker is, by trade, an investment banker at UBS. He is also an economic consultant to the Republic of Armenia, and he's the founder of the Gomidas Digital Brain Initiative and has plans to produce an Armenian opera. Please welcome to the stage, Mark Chenian.
Hello. 1971 was a year of discovery for me in a lot of fields, but one important, which is relevant for today, is that Armenians have contributed to the development of civilization, but the world doesn't know it, and more sadly, Armenians don't know it most of the time. Hence, a love story of 50 years and going. I'm going to concentrate on two concepts. One is the digital brain of Gomidas, and the other one is opera. Back in 1987, in a roundtable discussion, I talked about machine intelligence. As an investment banker, we were making investments in that direction and so forth. Somehow, Ohannes Salibian, who was the chairman of the music department at USC in California, heard about it, approached me, as usual, lunch, and talked about the Armenian Ghazas. Who doesn't know what Armenian Ghaz is? So everybody knows. Okay. Ghaz is musical notes, but very typical Armenian. It shows up in manuscripts and so forth. And he told me that Gomidas, in his correspondence, and he has extensive correspondence over the years when he was alive, talked about doing research and trying to find out what the logical Ghazas were. And then another letter, he says, I'm making progress. And another one, he says, I found the key. But unfortunately, that key didn't get to us. Somehow, it's out there. And therefore, he approached me and said, this machine intelligence that you're talking about, can they help me in research? After listening 3 hours what he was saying, the following thought crossed my mind. What nations do not have alphabet, but their language is symbols? And it was Chinese, Japanese, and the Koreans. So I approached scholars, linguists in this field, and tried to discover what the genesis of that language symbols were from, and if it may lead me to the logic of our Ghazas. Unfortunately, after 1 year, we didn't go anywhere. Fast forward now. 3 years ago, I discovered that 23,000 documents penned by Gomidas is assembled now in Armenia. Some documents are in notes in the margins, others papers and so on, but everything penned by Gomidas. And therefore, I approached under the supervision of Maranataran, and I approached, I said, what does it take to digitalize the whole thing? And then bring in all the engineers and so forth, and see what we can get out of it. And today, by the way, in Armenia, there are quite a few Gomidas institutes and so, but this is the Tankaran, which is the newest one. They're already in the process of digitalizing. Hopefully by the end of the year, I will be able to quantify what exactly is and what can be complicated with. And if that is completed, then we're going to go through the process of machine learning, machine translation, and then eventually try to invite musicologists to come and ask the smart questions and see if we can extrapolate out of it what Gomidas was thinking or what Gomidas discovered and so forth. If this is successful, then the whole idea is to patent it to the benefit of Maranataran and invite the world to come and maybe create Beethoven's brain and see what else Beethoven was thinking that didn't get to us, or Socrates, so on and so forth. So that's the Gomidas project, which probably will be able to achieve it within a time frame of 2 years. Back in 1959, for the first time I saw Anush opera. I was in Cyprus, student. It was a black and white movie brought from Armenia, and they showed it in a theater. At the end of the show, the whole crowd, the community in Cyprus, stood up and clapping this, that, and so forth. And I was really surprised about that, because I thought, or I felt, that the Anush opera was very insulting for me. And the insult was the storyline, not the music. And I really was offended. I was only early teens. Luckily, a little bit later, I fell in love with 3 important women. All 3 were women of the stage. One was Maria Callas, The other one is Maya Plisitskaya. And the third one of you, I'm sure you all know, Sophia Loren. These three women shaped me in taste, in arts, and so on and so forth. At one point when I was, and by the way, I had the good fortune of meeting two of them, Maria and Sophia, especially Sophia when her sons were studying in Los Angeles, but never had Maya, the beautiful ballerina with the dying swan, Sansons. Anyway, and Maria. And therefore, when I saw what was happening to Maria, I thought that her life story should be an opera. But obviously, it was far-fetched. Coming to us, I thought that an opera would make a lot of storytelling in a very important, sophisticated medium of what we have been. And here is the three potential three scenes for you to know. It's obviously very audiovisual, very modern, and so on. By the way, opera is going to be in English. Number one, first scene, you're in a major museum. A very important artifact suddenly falls down and breaks into 15 pieces. And then from one, like a phoenix, what is the symbol? 1991, Soviet Union crushing into 15 pieces, and from one, Armenia coming out. Second scene. Remember what I said about Anush. Stanford University, graduation ceremony for PhD students. In philosophy department, a young man getting his PhD in philosophy, happens to be an Armenian from Armenia. In the law area, a young lady getting her PhD in constitutional law, happens to be from Armenia. The two meet for the first time, nuances and so forth. The guy says, would you come with me to Los Angeles? I have a series of lectures to deliver. She says, no, I cannot come because I have to rush back to Yerevan. This is 1991, and there is a constitutional convention to put together for the new country. And I was assigned to be the Secretary General of that convention. Anush, Secretary General. In different forums, I've talked about the following subject. In the foreseeable future, the intellectual capital in Armenia are the women. And here is a proof of it, that this is my opera. And on this Women's Day, it's really a pleasure to address all of you. And looking forward, in about 10 years, I'll send you the invitations. Thank you very much.
Well done. Well done, Mark. Our next speaker is the founder of Femino, the largest female innovation platform in Armenia. She leads the AGBU Innovation Studios in Pasadena, Los Angeles. Welcome, Seda Papoyan.
Thank you. So first of all, Barevdes, and happy International Women's Day to all wonderful women in the hall. I want to start with thanks to Sevan and Naira. Being myself into events, I know what it takes to make one, and also thank you for having me with what I do. So hopefully it's going to bring you some thoughts to go back and think of. But I will start with the question that I had earlier today for Garo Armen. What could be the role for women in shaping the technology future or even the technology present? Because what I do relates very, very closely to that. And then some people came up to me asking if I would agree with what he said, meaning we don't need to accept, divide women and men, we just need to approach them as people, as professionals. I would say that's something I would really like to do if there were not the problems and the grassroots issues that I encounter day to day in Armenia, but not only. Sometimes I say we are lucky to have the problems that are universal in this case, right? And let me go back to reflect, to illustrate what I say with some situations. Very recently, today on the International Women's Day, with organizations I run and have started, Femino, we have a campaign, an online campaign, which I think it's nice. There are young girls, teenage girls of 13 to 18, our own stakeholders, like participants from our various programs. They hold posters with some bold wishes or statements saying like, March 8 is about equal pay, March 8 is about leadership, March 8, things like that. And today, over the night, I had a dream. Some girls came up, and this is posted on our social media, please go and check. I had a dream about these girls coming to me and asking to take those posters out. Why? Because they had apparently problems at home, some parents, brothers, some people going back to them saying, what were they, like, why did you put up things like that? Luckily, no one came to me. It's not real yet, the dream, hopefully it will not. But because I have encountered similar situations so much that I had a dream and I worried about the girls. And then another situation from real life. Recently, a couple of months ago, we talked about a lot about venture investment funds, about leadership and investing so much. And then one of the venture funds started a chapter in Los Angeles, and I had the chance to be there at the launch event. When I entered the hall, there were all men, but I am brave enough already to enter the hall without fears that I would not be accepted. But just to illustrate small problems that not everyone sees, at some point there were a couple of women in the event. One of them just entered, saw me, came to sit next to me because we need safe spaces, especially when it comes to all men or male-dominated rooms, right? And I found out that this woman is one of the investors of the network. And when it came to the group photo moment, they're calling all investors to the group photo, and the woman sitting next to me, she says, I'm not going there. I'm saying, why? Because look, there's no woman there. I said, you should go and you should be present there. You dared becoming one of the investors of the network, but you don't feel comfortable enough to be in the photo. So there are small things that I wanted you to see and to kind of relate when it comes to speaking about problems women encounter sometimes, and unfortunately often it's not about the spaces they are not allowed, but it's about them not feeling safe or comfortable enough to enter those rooms. And what we do, going back to what I started, 3 years ago, by the way, who has by now known Femino as something doing in space? Okay, a couple of people already, yeah. Okay, I'm happy to see hands. Actually, we have a couple of members in the hall and some speakers who spoke back in Yerevan. Within 3 years' time, we started it on the basis of Girls in Tech Armenia, which I founded back in 2017, being very much into women's issues, women's rights, equality stuff. I started the chapter, and then at some point I realized we need to have an Armenian brand for women in innovation. That's how we mix two words, female innovation, and it became Femino. We started it as a platform to give more opportunities, to create spaces, to create this safety for the community, but never excluding men. It's not a counter-discrimination effort. It's just creating what misses. And at some point, I would go back and hopefully by the end of my life, I would be in the position of Garo Armen saying we don't have any problem addressing women or promoting them enough if we have the base, or if we are safe and if we are represented enough. And because I have a very short time, just to bring you some examples what we do. We do a lot of conferences. We focus a lot on education. And I know that it's always about economy, right? We need to bring more effort. And when we think about half or even more than half of populations worldwide being women, we miss so much not engaging them into spaces, especially when it comes to innovation. This is the first time that I publicly announce about our new initiative, which we call AI Girls. So if from a year from now, if you hear it moving well enough and spreading well, then you are one of the first to realize that you heard about it here in Nashville. We're going to push more and more young Armenian girls into the space so that they are not users only, they become creators and at some point even decision makers in AI field. And another thing that I would like you to know that we are starting a chapter in Los Angeles very soon on March 27th. If you happen to be around Los Angeles that time, we even may create some speaking opportunity for you, including men, by the way. We welcome always men to share and to be an example of supporting women. Last but not least, I love the synergy we create with so many women organizations like AIWA here and a lot others in Armenia and beyond. One thing I would leave you as diaspora, as people doing so much in diaspora, we usually think about investing in projects, in products and stuff. I would like to leave you with the thought, and maybe that's something to push our nation of networks, that what if we start thinking of first and earlier investing in people than projects? Because those projects, wherever we invest, then at the end of the day, we need those people to do those, right? And what if we start thinking of investing in projects and things which create and sustain those relations? Meaning, if there are networks, sometimes they live and they just fade out. What if we invest to making them sustainable so that we, at the end of the day, become as powerful as we all want here, being Armenians? Thank you.
Thank you, Sera. Thank you. All right. Our final speaker for the day is Berj Ayvazyan. He is a partner and senior consultant with Wireless 2020. He has a 40-year career as a telecom industry analyst. Berj has been active in the Armenian tech market since 2000. He's the co-founder of ARMTech, Armenian High-Tech Council. He is board advisor of EQWEFY and a member of the Angel Investor Club of Armenia. Please welcome Berj Ayvazyan to the stage.
Hi, everybody. So I'm between you and dinner, apparently. So if you want to start dinner right now, we can get going. You ready? Okay, cool. So first of all, you may have seen last night that my new name is Elon Trump, and I've decided by executive order to have this project be an annual event. So we're going to be funded by all the savings that my organization has created in the US government by firing all the employees. So the good news is we have a big budget. Okay, cool. So by the way, EQWEFY is spelled Equify, which we'll talk about at the end of this. So SETA was nice enough to invite me to speak at Femino last, when was it, October? Oh, in July, Morza. But thank you for that. That gave me an opportunity to be part of that Femino movement, and I was very proud and pleased to be part of it. I think I was the token man, or one of the few. So, you know, these logos come up, but they're part of the whole practices and lessons that I've learned from the work I've been doing for the past almost 30 years now, in trying to bring the tech industry in Armenia to a level of success that it could both propel the economy, create employment, and create a way for the whole worldwide Armenian community to galvanize together around technology. And in fact, that's what we've been doing. So I can tell you it's not an easy task, but in fact, if you focus on it like Emma has described, it's very powerful and produces a lot of results. So I'll tell you about mostly the results. And the notion of the network state, Armenia is a small country if you count only the people who live within the borders. But in fact, we've proven that as a global Armenian state, as a networked Armenian state, not only are we multiplying the number of Armenians involved, but the people in Armenia also become more powerful because they have a worldwide impact. They're not just contained in their little borders. And if somebody, by the way, takes Artsakh from them, they're not as negatively impacted because they have a whole world to live in and to expand into. So let's talk about how some of that works. My own career, I realized in my own work that if I was able to accomplish things and have some level of success, not only would that help sustain my family, but it could put me in a position to be able to do things for my country and for, at the time, there was no country. There was part of the Soviet Union, but over time, when we got independence, very quickly we got involved. Just a quick story that it happened that President Korkoian, when he became president, invited all the business people in the East Coast to come to a forum at the Citibank Center in New York. And there were about 10 of us there that were in the tech field. And we all joined with this meeting, and they took us aside and they said, could you help us create a tech industry in Armenia out of the rubble that was left after the Soviet Union fell? Literally, the whole thing had been destroyed. There was no customers, there were no suppliers, there was no electricity, there was nothing. We built from scratch, but used the piece parts. So where there was a bunch of semiconductor designers and engineers, we built Synopsys, which is a very powerful, the biggest and most influential part of the Synopsys global entity is in Armenia, of all things. But that's just an example. So in my own career, I've tried to leverage the experiences I've had. And for example, one of the rare ones was that as an industry analyst in the Yankee Group, I was running parallel to what was called Battery Ventures. It's still around, a large venture capital fund. And we were co-founded by the same guy. And so I worked in venture capital from the early days. When I became CEO of Yankee Group, and ultimately sold it to Reuters, we allowed that company to become part of the Reuters empire and start Reuters in the United States. So let's take an example. Just at the same time, we decided, those of us who had been to the Economic Forum in New York, to form an organization called the Armenian High-Tech Council. And there were only a few of us at that time in the year 2000, but we were invited to Armenia to meet our counterparts and work with the industry and with the government to build this high-tech industry. So Armtech was born by the efforts of about 20 or 30 co-founders, and ultimately led to something called the Asfads. Kiç me gespases crossing. I sign orderinka. Kırna lavor krapar khosis. Anyway, I promised to stay on time. Don't worry. Just stop talking. Anyway, so what did we do? We built this ARMTech. Now we have 5,000 members around the world that are linked on LinkedIn, and they work together collaboratively. So what else? At some point, they needed to bring competitors to Armenia in the telecom industry, and they asked us to help, so we brought Orange to Armenia. And we formed Orange Armenia to spur innovation, to create competition. Unfortunately, France Telecom decided it wasn't a good investment, so they decided to sell, and we helped them sell to UCOM. And for those of you who don't know, we have a diversity of companies now that are in the telecom space in Armenia. And UCOM is part of Orange. And also, one of the more interesting ones is Team Telecom, which had an IPO last year on the Armenian Stock Exchange. And it also now is investing in European telecom operators, including one of my clients in Ireland. So they're a very innovative company, and they're showing that Armenians can not just be trapped in their little small country, but they can have an impact worldwide. Also, 5G is coming to Armenia, and as it does, we're going to also integrate Starlink into the 5G evolution. Asfads, spasimim. Haskitsa, yergu jamunim, che? To kaiding haskanak. Ayo, love. Okay, so you've heard most of the story about PixArt and Service Titan. So you know it's possible to not only create unicorns, but to then have them go public and create huge economic opportunity. Service Titan is the leader, but PixArt is right behind. And it's led by my former colleague from many years ago, Hovannes Avoyan, who has done a terrific job leading them to the top of the heap. You know, everybody recognizes Armenia has a great potential in high tech, and we've been doing a lot to make that possible. It's published a lot. Organizations that lead the industry have been doing lots of stuff, including TUMO. And Armenia should be the best place to develop AI. And we have figured out how to do it, by the way. Not only are we creating AI-driven startup companies, which are in specific industries, but we've learned that not only do you work in those sectors, but you have a secret sauce. You don't just use AI to go find information and create a junk drawer of AI-driven content. More importantly, you work within the sector and the best practices, the most cutting-edge information, and you deliver those results. So when you have a company like Hercules AI, they've learned they don't just create junk AI, they create industry-specific AI. So how do we take the benefits of this high-tech industry and democratize it? Well, certainly we've had a lot of angel investors. I myself am a sadhana investor. Right? You guys know what that means? But we also want to take that success and democratize it. So in Armenia, they don't have retirement funds, or they're just starting to. And if they do have it, they're not invested in anything that's going to grow or going to increase in value. So when we've started Equify, we are specifically targeting Armenians who want to benefit from high tech throughout the respective industries. So you know what's been going on. We put a supercomputer lab in Armenia. NVIDIA opened an operation in Armenia, Asvadzmedze, and we've been doing a lot of stuff. We just had WCIT, the Worldwide IT Congress in Armenia. So we're going to make Armenia the best form of generative AI. And if you want to develop the best generative AI, you want to come to Armenia. We're going to blend that with 5G, and we're going to bring Starlink into the story. And we're going to let God to take us to the end of this presentation. Thank you very much, Sevan, for tolerating my...
Well done, Bearish. Well done. So now we're going to take a group photo. If you all would be so kind, let's line up. Tall people right over here. And we have our talented photographer. You stay put. All right.
Who wants to hold this throne?
Yes. I'm a short one. All right. And they very much close in 10 minutes. So we will keep the networking going into dinner. Don't forget anything in here. They will lock us out. Remember to buy some baklava. No, you should come up here. You guys belong up here. There's a stage for short people. Let's go. You're a tall. You're a tall. You're a short. Get up here, shorties. Join us. Join us, short folks.
Great. We can come up. We're short ones.